Story 1. Eta for refusing to drop charges in exchange for saving my family. Original post, September 21st, 2024. I, 33M, met my wife, 33F, in college. It was a long-term physical relationship that turned serious at the end of our senior year. After graduation, I didn't have plans, so I decided to move to her hometown, major southern city. I didn't know anybody, so we were together 24/7 and moved in together within a year. During this time, I met her family a few times. She had a huge extended family where her mom, Sharon, was the matriarch. Her dad died in a workplace accident, and her mom got a lot of money. She was smart and invested and is doing well. All of Sharon's sibling and nieces/nephews looked to her for advice on all major life decisions. She's paid for school, weddings, and helped start businesses. My wife has two brothers who I always got along with. We would hang out independent of my wife a few times a year. We got married after 3 years, and when my son was born, Sharon bought us a house 3 blocks from hers. We had lived in a downtown loft-style apartment, and this was honestly a relief. But with the house came Sharon constantly being in my life. Coming in the house unannounced, unsolicited advice, and snide remarks at my expense. Eventually, 18 months later, we had a blow-up fight and I moved my family across town to an apartment. My wife was pissed and our relationship has deteriorated. Sharon hates me and has turned most of their family against me. I didn't see or go to any of her family events for over a year. My wife still saw her family, but because I wasn't invited and they were over 30 minutes away, it was much less. Sharon went from seeing her grandson almost every day to once a month. So her hate for me went through the roof. The incident. My wife had to work and I was asked to take my son to his cousin's birthday party. The party was at Sharon's house, and if it wasn't my son's first cousin, 6 months apart, I would have said no. It was tense the moment I walked in the house. Father of birthday boy, brother-in-law, greeted me, but no one else spoke to me. I didn't mind and sat in the corner on my phone. This apparently pissed of Sharon because I was being rude. An argument ensues, and I announce I'm leaving with my son. Sharon said, "You can go, but my grandbaby is staying." At this point, I lost my cool and started cursing her out. I woke up on the front lawn. Apparently, my 2 brother-in-laws beat the shit out of me in front of my kid. 2 of her cousins were helping me up and told me just to leave. I immediately called the police and said I was assaulted and my child was kidnapped. Police came and both brothers were arrested. Sharon lost her shit on the police, and my wife drove up as her mother was being arrested for refusing to release my son. Her mom was eventually released, but her brothers were arraigned on assault charges. The father of the birthday had an assault charge from college, so he is facing some serious consequences. My wife is mad at everyone but asked me drop charges. I not only refused, but got retraining orders for all 3 of them. Her mother isn't allowed to be near our kid, and her brothers have court dates early next year. Last month she moved out the house. We are now headed for divorce. Yesterday she came with one last offer, for us to move cities and start over. But only if I dropped the charges on her brothers and removed the restraining order on her mom. I told her I would think about it, but I think I would rather get divorced. I honestly want to keep my family, but I don't believe she'll ever abandon her family for me. If I drop charges now, I doubt I can bring them back later. Ada for not trying to save my family? Edit. This blew up overnight. My wife's cousin DM'd me because she found it. She was there that day and told me to add some more context because her family is getting railed in the comments. She's right. So here are a few more things. I don't think anyone is evil in this situation. Everyone loves Sharon and her advice, except me. She's not a mean person, but we are polar opposites in many ways. My wife is the baby and only girl, so I'm sure that has a lot to do with our conflict. Sharon losing her shit on the police was uncharacteristic, and even I was surprised. My wife is a great mom and partner, but her inability to be independent of her mom's influence is our issue. She is mad at her brothers and isn't talking to either. She's also mad at her mom for starting the argument and refusing to release our son. She's just trying to find a middle ground. I genuinely think she hopes a fresh start can save our marriage. Until we moved into that house, I would say our relationship was good, as far as her brothers and the assault. I remember the first hit, but I was dazed immediately. The last thing I remember was flailing like a child while getting hit a few more times. What I don't remember is my kid screaming to stop hitting my daddy and them picking me up and dropping me on the lawn like trash. I have to acknowledge that my pride hurt more than my bruises. I genuinely liked both her brothers, and to be fair, fuck you and bitch came out of my mouth when I cursed out Sharon. I'm not 100% innocent. This is the South, so the police even said, "What did you expect to happen?" I don't know if I stopped pursuing this, it would continue or not. Relevant comment. When brought up, the state presses charges, not the victim. I just want to comment on this because it keeps coming up. You are 100% right. In the initial confrontation, the cops asked if I wanted them arrested. And I said yes. I was more bruised than bloody, and they were willing to let it go as a family dispute. That's where the "what did you expect to happen?" conversation came from. I'm not pressing charges per se, but I'm not letting it go. I've done 2 interviews with police and have been fully cooperating. If I stopped, they might drop the charges because they seemed more annoyed than helpful. I doubt the younger brother will get more than a slap on the wrist. My wife's oldest brother with a prior is in a lot more trouble. He's the one everyone is worried about. Also, Sharon never went to jail. When my wife arrived, Sharon was being escorted to a car. My wife and her 2 uncles got Sharon to calm down and they let her go. She wasn't being violent but was cursing and blocking them from entering the house. The only thing positive about the arrest, and Sharon's almost arrest, was it made getting a restraining order way easier. But even that took a month. Also, I had never talked to a lawyer for any reason, or had any trouble with police. I honestly don't know how any of this works. I just found out the difference between parole and probation a few weeks ago. OOP on Sharon, the mother. Ebb Independent 5,368. Sharon is not a good mother. Her habit of buying everything for everyone is robbing her grown children of having their own achievements, which builds character, mental toughness, maturity, and pride in themselves. A better parent would have matched their savings for down payments. Obviously, there was a price to be paid for her investments in their lives. She is able to make major decisions in their lives. She is able to walk right in like she owns the place, because she does. It sounds like she is an overbearing, iron-fisted, suffocating presence in their lives. I keep feeling like I'm defending this woman, and trust me, I'm not. But she started flipping houses in the 90s before it was a thing. She always kept her job as a nurse and kept investing in new properties. She helped both her brothers start their own construction business, and 5 nieces-nephews now work in real estate. Her 2 smartest moves were, she was an early iPod user from her time as a nurse, and invested heavy in Apple stock in 2002. 2. She pulled out of big real estate investments in 2006, a little early, and sat on her money until 2010. Then she bought up a ton of property. The woman is smart and accomplished, so everyone sees her as this messiah of wisdom. So when she deemed me an asshole for not wanting her in my house constantly, and then a bigger asshole for moving my family across town, everyone fell in line. If Sharon thinks he is bad, he must be bad. Update January 20th, 2025, 4 months later. Hello, let me start by saying thank you to the supporters and fuck you to the assholes. Reddit is one hell of a place to get perspective on things. Only place you could be called a good father and cuck in the same thread. I've been wanting to write and update and answer questions for a while, but after my original post, many Reddit lawyers reached out and told me to stop talking immediately. Since things were very uncertain and my divorce wasn't settled, I decided to not respond or update anything until things calmed down. A lot has happened to so many people involved, so I think I'm just going to break it down by person. Me. I moved back to the West Coast, where I am originally from. I decided to move forward with the divorce, so I moved home. Furthermore, I had nothing left for me in that city, as I only had a few friends, my son, and a lot of bad memories. My ex and son cried a lot the day I left, and that hurt my soul, but it was best for all parties involved. So I moved back home to be around my family and my support system. I got a good-paying job, and I'll be subletting a 2-bedroom apartment starting next month. My son spent the holidays with me, staying with my parents, and I plan to see him on Easter. Going forward and laid out in our custody agreement, my son will stay with his mother until he is 12. I'll get him Easter and summers, and we'll switch Christmas and Thanksgiving every year. When he's 12 and needs a father figure, he'll come live with me until he is 18. I talk to my son every day on the phone for at least an hour, and I'll try to fly out there a few times a year. I can't shake the feeling that a piece of me is missing, and wish it was just my son, but I miss my wife too. My ex-wife. So the divorce is basically settled, and I obviously didn't move away with her. In the end, she saw my post and saw the comments, and realized that she shouldn't have asked me to stop pursuing the case. She asked again, saying we could move and just get away from her family. Too much had happened, and our relationship was a shell of what it was. We both said and did things we forgave but can't forget. I wish this was a movie and I could just say love conquers all, or fuck her, she is evil. But that isn't real life. I'm torn between both loving this person and knowing we aren't right for each other. While she didn't want to move forward with the divorce, she didn't fight me on it either. We were able to settle everything without lawyers and only use them for paperwork and fine details. We talk daily because of our son, and she says she is doing well, but last time I FaceTimed her I can tell she isn't eating. My sister said it's post-breakup hotness, whatever that means, but she looks more sick than hot. She hasn't spoken to her brothers since that day, and blames them for a lot of what happened. She and Sharon's relationship is also very strained, and they barely talk as well. Ironically, she is hardly speaking to the family she was so desperately trying to keep together. I honestly wish she would talk to her family again, because I worry about her a lot. People were very mean to my ex-wife, saying she was a terrible mother and wife. I think she lives for and would die for her family, and all her actions were to keep us together. She told me her two biggest regrets were moving into Sharon's house and moving out of our apartment. Those two actions caused most of our problems. She is a great mother to my child, and I will always have her back. The brothers. I didn't expect much as far as punishment in this case. They both plead out to a simple assault, which only had minimal consequences. Both brothers spent a night in jail, got fines and anger management. The older brother had a prior incident that I mentioned in the earlier post. It was a bar fight in his early 20s, and he hit a guy with a bottle and got an assault charge. Since that case was over 15 years ago and he's married, pillar of the community, etc., he was given probation for a year, and that was the end. Both brothers have partners in life, and the oldest one is married. I've known his wife for many years, and we've always been friendly. Because of the restraining order, both spouses reached out on behalf of the brothers to speak to me. I barely knew the younger brother's girlfriend, but since I knew the wife, I spoke to her. She said both brothers regretted their decision, and she asked me to lift the restraining order and not to pursue charges. We had a brief conversation, but I simply told her I don't forgive her husband and Bill, and I'm moving forward with both. As we ended the conversation, I told her not to call me again, and I haven't heard from either brother since. I don't know anything beyond what the ex tells me, and she isn't speaking to them. Sharon. So I did have it out with Sharon, and it went about as well as you can imagine. Here is a little backstory to our relationship. Let's start by saying my ex and her family are devout Christians who go to church weekly. I'm a lapsed Catholic who goes to church 3x a year. I live a very moral and ethical life, but my belief system isn't centered on the church. Furthermore, I consider myself a moderate liberal, and their family is moderate conservatives. That is, I'm down the Second Amendment, and Sharon supported gay marriage. Ideologically, we were far apart, but agreed on the important things in life. The real problems began when my son was going to be baptized. My mom wanted to get our son baptized Catholic, and Sharon wanted him baptized Protestant. Lots of snide remarks about Catholics were said, but I let it go at the time. The ex and I decided to wait and let our son decide, which Sharon hated. When my ex started going back to church and I wasn't in attendance, that further widened the divide. Her family would go by Sharon or someone else's house after church for lunch, dinner, and I either showed up later or not at all. Every time Sharon didn't agree with a decision we made as a couple in regard to our lives, especially my son's life, She would start leaning on my wife and pressuring her behind the scenes. We would literally make a decision, and she would go to her mom's house and then come back with a different opinion. The most frustrating part is she stopped trying to talk to me at all. She would literally just call me wife and get her to change her decision. The big fight that led to us moving out was that my son wanted to play soccer and not football. But my wife's family is a huge football family. We agreed for him not to play football because he didn't want to play and our concerns about CTE. My wife comes home one day and does a 180 saying that she signed him up for football. We start arguing and Sharon comes in the house unannounced and joins the conversation saying, "We decided it would be good for him." I got pissed and told them Sharon is not my son's parent and my ex shouldn't be so weak when her mom is pressuring her to do something we decided not to do. Then she said the words that sealed the deal. My opinion should matter. I bought the house. I started looking for a new apartment that night and never looked back. So when we talked, and neither of us raised our voices, but it wasn't a nice conversation. I started and apologized for calling her a bitch, and she apologized for trying to keep my son without my permission. She flat out told me she wished my daughter never met me, and that I've ruined her family. That her sons have criminal records now, one already did, and it's all my fault. She then started crying about not seeing my son and how she lost her only daughter. I told her she was manipulative and used her money to control the family, that she only didn't like me because she couldn't control my decision like her weak-willed family. I also told her she consistently overstepped her bounds in regard to my child and marriage, and she put her own selfish interest ahead of her daughter's happiness. After spending an hour calling each other assholes in different ways, we ended things in the same place. In the end, I told my ex her mom could see my son because Sharon loves him unconditionally, and he loves her. Call me stupid, but I think family is a big part of your upbringing. My mom isn't around him enough, and every child needs a good grandma. The ex said she has been to a few family situations that were hard to avoid, wedding, funeral, Thanksgiving, but she leaves when her brothers come and my son doesn't leave her side. Sharon has seen my son and he has played with his cousin, birthday boy from Original Story, but she's keeping him from the family for the time being. My son. He's having a hard time with everything. It's not the fight. He thinks we were wrestling. He misses me a lot and cries on some of our phone calls. He's in therapy and all the sessions are about missing his dad and why we can't live together. It's been a few months and it's slowly getting better, but we ruined his childhood and I take my share of responsibility in that. The cousin. She is my wife's first cousin, but they are more like sisters. Sharon is her aunt by marriage, and she was the first to warn me about the family. She was also eviscerated by the comment sections for having me add to the story. She told me I was out of line for calling Sharon a bitch, but didn't feel I deserved to get beat up. Likewise, she also grabbed my son when the fight happened and took him away. She was the one who told my son we were wrestling, and she called my wife to come immediately. When Sharon was being handcuffed, the cousin came outside holding my son. I told her to give him to me, but she pointed at my swollen face and asked if she could hold him. I trusted her enough in that situation to care for my son, so I respected her enough to add those details. She didn't deserve the shit comments either. Conclusion. In the end, everyone in their family read the original post, but because of divorce and assault cases, no one directly contacted me other than my ex. It wasn't a hit to say the least, but I only care that hit hurt my ex's feelings. I think seeing everything written out from my perspective opened her eyes. Obviously, some things were left out, and broad strokes were made to explain complex situations. In the end, she said I didn't lie, but she thinks I painted her family in a horrible light. We thought about writing a joint update, but we aren't talking enough to make that happen. I told my ex about this post and asked if she wanted to read it before I posted, and she told me to write whatever I want. Nobody won here, we all lost. I'll try and respond to questions I think are relevant. Relevant comment? Bachatarosas. I understand everything else, but did you really have to abandon your kid? OP. I knew I would get destroyed for this, but abandon is a strong word. I didn't abandon my son. I left for better opportunities in life for both of us. both mentally and financially. My chosen profession has more opportunities here. I was only there for my wife and child. My career picked up during the pandemic because I could work remotely, but in-office work is becoming mandatory again. I was already going to have to quit or move companies, so the timing was right. Also, my mental health is 10 times better now that I have left the city. For months, I gave my child fake smiles while trying to be a good father. I was a shell of the man I wanted to be. I'm still broken by what's happened, but I'm in a better place mentally, and in the long term, I'll be better financially. Odd_instruction 519. Left for better opportunities in life for both of us. For you, yes. For him, not really. T. I was responding to something else you wrote, but saw you responded to this. Your assessment of my situation is understandable. But me working for less money and being constantly unhappy isn't good for my son. If I could have stayed in state, trust me, I would have. But the economy is fucked. I used all my savings to continue paying bills and lived with my parents for free to start over. Maybe I could have found happiness there, but I didn't see it happening. We are co-parenting the best we can. Story 2. My mom explained why she's always been partial to my sister. Posted December 22nd, 2023. Okay, so I, 17M, have a twin sister, and if I'm being honest, our mom has always seemed more partial to her. She's always far quicker to give her hugs and compliments, and she seems a bit more emotionally distant to me. I've noticed it my whole life, and I've tried not to let it bother me, but things finally came to a head recently. I don't really want to get into the inciting incident that started this. Long story short, we've been looking at colleges, and I was upset because it seemed like she wanted my sister to stay local more than she wanted me to. And I told her she loved my sister more than me our whole lives, and she didn't give a shit about me, and I'm still not sure why. Today she came in my room and asked if we could talk, and she said there's something she felt it was time to tell me. Then she opened up about her childhood, something she's never done, and explained that her father abused her sexually, and she had brothers who abused her too, and it instilled a deep disdain towards men in her. She told me she's been meaning to go to therapy and get help, but she told me it breaks her heart that she ever made me feel like she loved me less than my sister, and she's been trying my whole life to get the fuck over it and grow up, and that it breaks her heart that I haven't had the mom I deserve. She started crying, and I hugged her and told her I loved her, and she was a great mom and I was lucky to have her. Afterwards, I suggested we go out to dinner, just the two of us, and I could pay, and she said she'd take me up on that under the condition she'd pay. So we had a really nice dinner, and we talked, and I felt I connected with her in a way I hadn't before. I can't really explain it, but I felt like I saw her, and she saw me in a different, but good, way. Overall, gonna be honest, I feel terrible because I feel like I made her trauma all about me. She's a wonderful person, and I don't know why I'd accuse her of not loving me like she loves my sister. Alls I know is that I'm gonna be better to her and understand she's doing her best, as we all are. That's all. Just figured I'd share somewhere. Edit. Okay. Yes, my mom has been making mistakes with not getting treatment and how she's been more partial to my sister than me. However, that doesn't mean she's a horrible mother like a bunch of comments are insinuating. She's a human being in pain, and she was able to admit when she did something wrong, and just so everyone knows, she did make some calls and has an intake therapy appointment on Wednesday. If I made my mother sound like she hated me or was blatantly awful to me, she doesn't and she isn't. I love her and she loves me, and we're going to do better from now on. Relevant commas. Meh, this seems like an excuse. She has disdain for men, but seems to have had married your father and had sex with him enough to make kids. I'd be less forgiving towards her than you have been, to be honest. She kinda ruined your childhood, and now is playing the woe is me card. She didn't marry my father. Hell, I've never even met my father. I know it is late, but I am glad you are talking openly now. It will lead to a wonderful adult relationship if it continues. As a parent, there is a lot of guilt in not getting the treatment you need and seeing it come out as baggage in your kids. I do hope she gets therapy for her trauma. On another note, you may want to go to therapy as well, maybe with your mom, because you have not experienced physical love, and it could be impactful on how you interact with your kids when, if the time comes. I didn't get physical love from my father because he was also sexually abused, and as a result, I don't like being touched by people outside of my immediate family, my kids and wife. Maybe it's nothing for you, but keep your eye on it in the future in your familial relationships. Best wishes. Well, I have experienced physical love, just not as much as my sister. But just so you know, my mom gave me a good morning hug this morning and asked what the plan was for today. She's trying 3. One question. Does she have a disdain to your father? How did she develop a casual romantic relationship with your father with the level of hatred she has for men? I've never met my father. Sorry to hear that, and sorry for the late reply. But I'm asking, how were you conceived if she had such level of hatred for disdain for men? She promised she'd tell me that soon. From my understanding, we were an unplanned, accidental pregnancy, and then our dad left at the last second. Was the disdain before or after she met your dad? That I'm not sure about. We'll figure that out. I just know my whole life she's always had this cynicism towards my male teachers and the dads of the kids who I was friends with as a child. She would even request a woman when someone needed to come to our place to repair something or anything like that. Update. My mom explained to me why she's always been partial to my sister, posted January 24th, 2024. Hi all. So I made a post last month talking about how my mother opened up to me about why she's always seemed more partial to my sister. I was going to post an update 2 weeks ago, but the Reddit app crashed, and I lost the post as I was close to finished with it, and I rage quit and lost the drive to write another one. That being said, thank you to some of the people commenting asking for an update. You helped bring the drive back. For those of you who haven't read my original post, to make a long story short, my mother was sexually abused her whole childhood by almost every single one of the men in her life, including her father, older brothers, and some older students at school. These horrible experiences ended up instilling a deep disdain towards men inside of my mother. And my whole life I always felt she connected with my sister more than me, and made more of an effort to connect with her than me, and I confronted her about it recently. Then, for the first time, she told me what had happened in her childhood to make her more partial to women, and agreed to get therapy to help her with her problems. So before I get into my update, a few things. First, people were asking about my father and, well, I've never met him. My mother has never told us about him aside from the fact that he left her to mother us all by herself at the last second. Like really, all by herself, we don't have any family members we talk to. Additionally, people accused her of telling me the story to manipulate me and get herself a pass, and that's just not true. If you want to argue she wasn't taking care of herself in the way she should have, then sure, you're not wrong. However, she's not abusive or shitty like that. She's just a person in pain. Now on to the update. She goes to therapy on Monday afternoons, and I've been going with her to her sessions, and we get dinner afterwards. To be honest, the main reason I started going with her to make sure she goes, and that's been going well. She walked out of one session crying this month, but that's just how it goes sometimes. I've also been seeing eye to eye with my mom in a way I never have, and I've even been getting along better with my sister, who she also ended up telling about her childhood. And my sister has been insanely compassionate towards both me and our mom, and sometimes will intentionally leave my mother and I alone so we can bond. And don't make any mistake, she is trying her damnedest to connect with me. She's been asking me questions about my hobbies and engaging in them with me, and I do believe she's a great mom. I'll close this out with an uplifting story from a few nights ago. So my sister and I watched some TV together and were up late, so we started heading to bed but heard our mom in her bed crying. We looked at each other and neither of us knew why she was crying. But I know she's been in pain, so I went inside and without saying anything, lied down her bed next to her. She stopped crying and seemed surprised, but then my sister came into the room and also without saying a word, got into the bed next to us. My mom started crying again, a good cry this time, and gave us both a hug and said, "I love you guys," and the three of us all went to sleep together. It genuinely made me feel like my sister and I were little kids again. Obviously, we had a lot less space than we did back then and were packed tightly together, haha. But it was wonderful and reminded me of the old days when we'd all fall asleep together. Anyway, yeah, that's the update. Thank you to the people who were commenting asking me to post the update and to anyone who left a supportive comment on my last post. It means a lot. Relevant comment? I'm glad to hear your mom is healing little by little. Just want to acknowledge how huge it is for her to not panic when you first went to cuddle with her. She was able to connect with you in a special way that she probably couldn't before. The cynical part of me wonders if she wasn't comfortable until my sister got in the bed. However, I'll still take it as a victory she trusted me enough to fall asleep with me in that situation. Hell yeah. I'm happy for you, sister and mom. Let the healing begin. Did you decide on a college? I'm not smart enough for some of the big schools like my sister is. One of the reasons I thought my mom loved her more than me. And TBH, I've come to realize that goddamn community college is seriously underutilized, so I'm probably gonna stay local. Also, a lot of the stuff I love relating to my hobbies is here, so that makes it a pretty appealing option. I'm not smart enough for the big schools like my sister is. Community college is a great opportunity. My child's grades through high school were average. They enrolled in community college. After 2 years, they decided school is cool. With 2 associate's degrees earned, they were accepted and enrolled in a state college, close to home. Bachelor's degree acquired. Now, after applying for a master's program, they've been accepted by 13 different schools. So, you never know, OP. Please don't think that you're not smart enough. Some folks take a little longer to connect all the dots of life and receive what school offers. Also, good on you for sticking with your hobbies. One of the managers at my job told me if he could do it all over again, he'd go to community college, then transfer. It's so much cheaper, too. Given what she went through, Mom's side and Dad's side could be the same side. No, our mom has assured us this is not the case. I thought of it and asked her, and she got pregnant with us after she left home when she turned 18. OP then posted this on the last Baru post. Sigh. These comments sum up everything I hate about Reddit. I see a lot of comments creating a narrative and making assumptions based on what I shared, such as me not getting my own therapy or my sister and I being the product of rape. We're taking it one step at a time, and yes, I am receiving my own therapy despite the assumptions of so many commenters. Additionally, yes, I am battling some complicated feelings of my own with being angry at her for waiting so long to get help and thinking that was okay. But I'm saving those feelings for the therapy office until I'm ready to talk to my mom about it. Even though you may not be wrong that she was being a bad mom for going so long without therapy, there is absolutely no need to get angry on my behalf. You can interpret my defensiveness as me not wanting to admit that what has been said is true, but I just really don't care for people on the internet making assumptions about me and my family based on one snapshot I decided to share. To the person who shared this is not all directed at you, and feel free to keep the post up. Thank you for sharing my post. As well as this. 17. And she's just learning his hobbies is the saddest part she's had his entire life, to learn who he is, and apparently doesn't know the most basic things that make him happy. Okay, she's known all about my hobbies for my whole life. She was the one who helped me find them. We're just using them to bond. Update. Mom explained why she's always been partial to my sister, posted February 21st, 2024. So I figured I'd post another update. I've made posts about my mother who explained to me how she was sexually abused by all the men in her childhood, which is why she's always seen partial to my twin sister. And you can just go to my post history to see the full story because I don't particularly care to summarize it again. This one's not as happy. Ever since I first confronted her about it, I've had this sense of resentment towards her I'd been trying to compartmentalize and deal with later, or at least in my own therapy sessions. As of late, it's been getting harder to ignore them, and over the weekend I lost my temper and yelled at her asking why she thought it was okay to wait so long to get help, and how she probably wouldn't have done anything if I didn't call her out for her bullshit. She heard me out and started to cry and said the only thing she can say is I'm right, and I've always deserved a mom who would outwardly love me as much as my sister, and it breaks her heart. I didn't get that mother, and all she can say is she's sorry, and hopes I can forgive her someday. I didn't say anything in return and just left the house. I haven't confronted her since, and I know she feels bad, and the shitty part of me feels good about that. But I know she needs all the support she can get, so it's just a shitty situation all around. This is probably above Reddit's pay grade, but I figured I'd post it anyway. Relevant comment. Have you had the chance to talk to someone about it? I think this is something you'll feel for a long time. If you don't talk to someone about it, it might affect other parts of your life. Yeah, I'm seeing a therapist. She cried. Her tears are to make you feel guilty for calling her out. Until she shows you an improvement in her treatment to you, don't fall for the tears. For what it's worth, she has shown an improvement over the last few months. Like, I'm a big movie buff, and she's been asking to watch movies with me a lot as of late, which she didn't do before, and she's making more of an effort to talk to me about my day in school, and even the girl I've been talking to. Maybe she didn't realize just how much her actions were hurting me, and is trying to do what she can to fix it. She doesn't need support. She needs to end the pity party and start supporting the son she has neglected all this time and not keep doing the same thing. Part of me wants to agree with you, but she is in a lot of pain. She is the parent. As a parent, she needs to suck it up and be a fucking parent. She hasn't your entire life. You know what? For the time being, I'm going to agree with you. I'm not feeling compassionate right now. Update. My mom explained why she's always been partial to my sister, posted December 18th, 2024. I was thinking today and randomly remembered a year ago, 18M, posted about me telling my mom that she's obviously always loved my twin sister more than me, and then he explaining how she grew up in a house with a father and brothers who regularly sexually assaulted and raped her, and she projected that disdain towards men onto me. Since then, my mother, my sister, and I have been seeing our own individual therapists, and we've had several group sessions together. So today my sister is away at college and I stayed local and go to community college. Something, I think. I mentioned in my old post was my mom was pushing me to go away to school and encouraging my sister to stay local. Funny how that happens. Anyway, my sister is coming back home this week for the holidays, but I've honestly really enjoyed it here with my mom. She's been making an effort lately to engage with me with the things like passionate about, and I'm a big movie fan, so I've been showing her my favorite movies over the past few months. She's made an insane amount of progress as well, and I'm so proud of her, and we have a wonderful relationship. It certainly wasn't always pretty over the past year, and even though the work isn't always easy, the payoff is certainly worth it. So yeah, we're doing a lot better than we were when I made that original post last year. Relevant comments. I am happy that your life and your relationships are improving, but I can't help but to feel that if a future parent has that much baggage, they should resolve it before having children or refrain from having them. It is unfair to the child. Something I forgot to put in the post. She told us a little bit about the circumstances around our birth. It wasn't as awful as I was dreading, but long story short, we were unplanned, and it sounds like she was more or less bullied into bringing us to term. This is a sweet update. Thank you for taking the time to help your mom feel more comfortable. And I'm happy she took the time to understand she was hurting me. Team effort. I'm so glad to hear you guys are doing better. If you want any good Christmas movie recs, Klaus on Netflix is a cute one. One of my online friends recommended this to me. I've been trying to stay away from anything involving violence towards women or anything just overly violent for my mom's sake, so this would be a good one to watch. Story 3. Aida for saying dishwashing is unskilled labor? Original post. Reddit, March 20th, 2023. I've been seeing this girl for 3 months who I'm pretty into. She's a professional chef, hot, and basically a badass. She smokes pot and drinks a lot more than me, but other than that, I have no complaints. She's very assertive because she has to be in her line of work, and luckily I'm into that, if you know what I mean. She works at an upscale bar, hence the drinking, where the food is really important, and she's super talented, so her dishes get written up in our local media, which is so cool. It feels a bit like dating a celebrity when we go out because she seems to know all the industry people and we get free drinks and stuff. The problem came up when she was complaining about her job, which she does a lot. She says her boss is unsupportive and won't hire more help for the kitchen. Right now, she does almost everything herself, so her hours are crazy long and she's stressed all the time. I agree it doesn't make sense to be so short-staffed because it seems like the bar is always busy and they make good money. The owner is an old-school boomer guy who thinks she's overreacting, or so she says. I don't like feeling helpless when she complains about work, so I offered to help wash dishes one night so she wouldn't have to work until 3 a.m. and we could go out. I made a lot of money in tech and retired early, so I have some time on my hands. She looked surprised and laughed and said, "Thank you for the offer." I was kind of hoping she would turn me down, but the way she said it was kind of patronizing, so I pressed a bit. She went into professional mode and asked if I'd ever washed dishes before. I said, yes, obviously, but not in a restaurant or anything. Now she looked really annoyed and asked why I thought I could just jump in and wash dishes without any experience. I laughed at this and said anyone could wash dishes. Teenagers do it as their first job. She got offended and said I didn't understand the realities of kitchen work because it's not easy, and dishwashers are the most important person in the restaurant. I thought that was a huge exaggeration. I worked at a Wendy's in high school, and it's the same damn skill set. What she does is skilled, but washing dishes is not skilled labor. She said, "There's no such thing as unskilled labor, and I'd take you up on your offer if I thought you wouldn't mess up service." I thought that was really rude and misguided. No such thing as unskilled labor? Are you kidding me? And told her so. She told me I was condescending and presumptuous, and she gets enough of that from her boss. The date was awkward for a while until she smiled and changed the subject, but now I can't stop wondering if her boss doesn't have a point about her overreacting. Aita, edit. She specifically said she needed a dishwasher. I didn't just pick it because I thought it was easy. Sorry that was unclear. Edit 2. All she said by way of explanation was, I'd get run over. I asked what made it skilled, and she said I was starting a bigger conversation that she didn't want to have right then while she was upset and not entirely sober. Fair enough. Verdict, removed before verdict rendered, heading heavily YTA. Top comment. Age lower, 1081. She, an experienced chef, told you that dishwashers are the most important person in the restaurant. You, who haven't worked in a food establishment since high school, are discounting her experience. You worked at a Wendy's, which has a fixed menu, doesn't serve food on plates with flatware, and uses paper cups. Dishwashing at a fast food restaurant is not the same as at full-service restaurant. Your attempt to wash dishes would disrupt service at your date's restaurant. Fitting in with a team of workers and know what to do is a key part to running a successful restaurant kitchen. Washing dishes may be a humble position, but it's absolutely crucial to the running of the kitchen. It's similar to engine oil in a car. You don't realize how crucial it is until the engine seizes. You are dating someone who works full-time in a professional cooking environment, and you responded as condescending AH. OP. YTA. Tater sprout. YTA. There are practically no jobs that a person can jump in and do without training. That is what she meant by no job is unskilled labor. You're a snob. You made it worse by continuing along with your insistence of demeaning a job that she finds extremely important. Without proper dishwashing, she can't do her job. She can't plate on dirty or improperly cleaned dishes. She values her dishwashers. You could learn a little respect and not look down on jobs that you feel are beneath your high level. Update 1. Same day, same post. Update. After reading through some more comments, I started to worry I'd really screwed things up, and I didn't want to wait until tonight to apologize. She didn't text me this morning to confirm our date like she usually does, and I had a bad feeling. I reached out and apologized for mansplaining something she obviously knew more about, and explained I was hurt by her patronizing response to my offer to help. She apologized and thanked me again for the offer, explaining she thought I was joking and never would have reacted that way if she'd known it was being sincere. She apologized for complaining so much and explained that it wasn't always a crisis situation, but the bar has doubled its business in the last year, and now she's burning out. The situation with her boss is stressing her out even more than anything. She's approached him several times, and he keeps brushing her off. It's almost hard to believe a business owner could be so in denial, but I feel really bad that I reminded her of him. I asked if we could talk about the skilled versus unskilled labor argument tonight, and she said, "Is it okay if we don't?" Things were going so well. I'm kind of frustrated by this because she made such a big deal out of it, but I'll respect her wishes. Final update. Same day, same post. Final update. This has been a lively discussion and not how I expected to spend my day. I appreciate all the information about dishwashing and the support from people who saw my perspective. I got some really kind DMs, and some weird ones. For everyone who said YTA, you'll be glad to know she broke up me. Yeah, I was an AH on purpose at the end there, but it was cathartic, and I think you'll agree she had it coming. Enjoy this absurdity. Her, I have to cancel tonight. I'm sorry for the short notice. I don't feel up to going out. Me, this is because about the labor thing, isn't it? I'm sorry for asking so many questions. I really want to understand you better. Her, no, it's because you think it's about that. You keep demonstrating that you're not listening to me. We clearly have communication issues, and it shouldn't be this hard to understand each other at this stage. That's no one's fault. Me, we don't have communication issues. You don't like to explain your assertions after you get called out on them. You need to understand when you call someone incompetent, you're going to have to back it up. So you're not just canceling dinner, this is a breakup. I thought you could have held out a little longer to tell me in person. That would have been the decent thing to do. H. I never said you were incompetent, or even implied it. You're putting words in my mouth. You interrogate me and won't listen to my answers. You assume the worst interpretation of everything I say. Look, I'm sorry. I thought this was the best way to do this, and I'm sorry if I was wrong. I figured it's only been a couple of months, and I didn't want to make you drive all the way from location. We could still meet up if you want to talk. M, you implied it. I thought you would have held out for one more free dinner. Blocked and good riddance. Final comments. Non ranunculus. It seems like you actually despise your now ex. I'm glad she broke up with you. Next time, maybe you should actually like the person you are with. I don't despise her. I am angry, and I have a right to be. She looks down on white-collar workers and resorted to insults and name-calling when we disagreed. I still respect her, but she didn't treat me well. Dance Commander. YTA. Judging by your snarky response of thinking she would have held out for one more free dinner, no, you do not respect her. You claim she looks down on white-collar workers when the reality is the opposite. You looked down on the blue-collar job of washing dishes as something anybody could do and refused to listen to any explanation as to why you were wrong. You know, just as you accused her of doing. Your projection here is absolutely insane, and you are beyond TA in this situation. EUP. As I did in the original conversation, as many people have pointed out, I only gave her what she gave me. If she is an AH to me, of course I'm going to be an AH to her. I'm not proud of myself, but it did feel good to dish it back, so to speak. Oop. Thank you. If the YTAs had a stronger majority, I might take their word for it, but it's not that close. It's not too much to ask to have civil conversations with people who don't lash out at me when I ask them to explain their position. That's basic respect. Purple Weasel. People keep explaining their position, and then you keep pretending they don't exist and saying things like, if only the YTAs had a stronger majority. That's why people are lashing out. It's frustrating to get asked for your opinion, give it, and then get ignored. Multiple times. OP. I didn't ignore anyone, I just disagree. It sounds like her kitchen is an especially bad place to be a dishwasher, and I should have been more enthusiastic in my offer. But I'm far from convinced I was an AH for offering help, or to believe that unskilled labor exists. Edit. I meant she lashed out at me when we disagreed, not people here. It's Reddit and not my GF, so I expect it here. Story 4. My new employee is the parent of my child's bully. Original post, June 27, 2023. I received a promotion last month after several stressful years. The money will be life-changing. I'm working out of a different office, much closer to home. I'll be doing work I care about, and I'll have more time with my family. The company filled an open role at my new location just before I was promoted. I didn't participate in the hiring process for this person. I did not know they hired the parent of my child's bully. This isn't just a few meetings with the principal kind of bully situation. We almost lost our child because of Timmy. We moved our child and their siblings to a different school. Then we sold our home and moved to the other side of the county. We had to involve the police at one point, resulting in being granted a restraining order against Timmy, who is now finally facing other legal consequences for his behavior. Both kids are still quite young, so I'm still shocked at the cruel and awful things I witnessed my child go through at the hands of a peer. feeling helpless and out of control while we begged the school and his parents to intervene. Our family life is finally settling down, and this new work opportunity felt like a new start for us after the pain and fear we've gone through. My child is finally beginning to heal and get their life and joy back. We're all in treatment as a family and individually to help recover from all of this. The company hired Timmy's mother, Jane, to fill this role, and I will be managing her. My first day meeting the team, she went pale when she saw me. I'm sure I probably did the same. I know everyone else on this team and have great rapport with them. I don't communicate with Jane unless I have to, and it's in writing. What should I do? I'm not quitting and I'm not taking a demotion. Should I meet with Jane and HR to discuss this and set expectations? That feels like I'm betraying my child and my family, but professionally, I know it's an option. Do I ignore it and hope she's so uncomfortable she quits? Should I ask HR about offering her a transfer? At a certain point in the last year, she behaved just about as badly as her child did, and the judge considered including her in the restraining order but was instead issued a warning on the record. I checked, and the two of us working together isn't a violation of the restraining order, but it does open up the possibility. I'm just so stunned, I don't know what to do. We don't speak or interact unless we have to, and some team members and a few of my colleagues in management have noticed, but not said much about it. I'm at such a loss. I have no idea how to handle this. Update June 5th, 2024, 1 year later. I appreciate that AAM allowed me the space to get my thoughts in order before I said or did anything stupid. I should have gone to HR my first day as Jane's manager, but I was not thinking straight. Things had been going so well at home that I didn't want to jeopardize it by bringing Jane back into our lives. Within a few days of my question posting, my junior team lead, Sam, asked me directly about my weird behavior around Jane, which had been going on for about 2 weeks or so. In the org chart, I'm Sam's superior, but not by much. Sam and I have worked together in the past, but not closely enough that he knew about my connection to Jane. Her child bullied and assaulted my child, and the courts were involved, among other things. I told Sam about my history with Jane, providing limited details with minimal legal documentation and proof which my lawyer advised me on, and he was shocked but incredibly supportive. He let me know that Jane had been very vocal with several other staff, including him, since my first day, warning staff to stay away from me, that I was toxic, dangerous, that I had slept with her husband and broken up her marriage. All I could do was laugh at that. It hadn't occurred to me that keeping my distance would give Jane a chance to try to damage my reputation, but she didn't get very far. I've worked with everyone else on this team on and off for most of my career, so they were all very skeptical. Sam and I met with HR and walked through my history with Jane to create a plan for Sam to manage her going forward. HR was wonderfully supportive and thanked me for communicating with her in writing, as it was probably the safest thing I could have done under the circumstances. Then we learned a few things we didn't know. HR had been planning to reach out to me, because when my predecessor hired Jane, he had done so without putting in the paperwork for a background check. This is one of the many reasons I replaced this manager. Our company requires us to use a fingerprinting service run out of the sheriff's office for a full background check before starting employment. My predecessor let her start without one and just marked passed in her employee profile without adding the appropriate documentation. When pressed, he said he lost it. HR was able to confirm Jane had never gone. Before I started as her boss, Jane had been given a 30-day grace period from HR to get fingerprinted, missed multiple appointments, and had been pushing back on it with my predecessor's support. He'd left no documentation for me or record of this issue, which didn't surprise us, and now there was only a week left in the grace period. HR needed to discuss terminating Jane if she didn't get fingerprinted for her background check within the next 10 days. All of this is based on state regulations and company policy and thankfully had nothing to do with me. There was no other job or department she could be moved to that didn't require a background check. Sam took over from there, and all I know is they met with Jane, explained that Sam would be her manager going forward, and made an appointment for her to get fingerprinted that day, and she enthusiastically agreed to go. And didn't. And never returned any calls or contact attempts from HR or Sam, which was honestly the best way this could have washed out. My family is doing better than ever. Work is great. And my amazing kiddo is healing and finding joy again. They even helped their new school start an anti-bullying and mental health program to help younger students if they feel unsafe. We're going to be traveling to see relatives and have some fun this summer, so we're very excited. I feel like a weight's been lifted off my chest. A huge thank you to the AAM community for just letting me get all my thoughts out. Story 5. X42F is creating so much drama in my 37M life that I'm having trouble coping. Considering giving up my kids just to get it all to stop. Original post, August 24, 2016. I don't know where to begin. I was married for 13 years, have 2 small children, 4 and 6, and after being divorced, I am now remarried to a wonderful woman, Donna. My ex will not stop harassing me. I have to communicate with her for the kids, but it is so contentious that the court finally ordered all communication go through an online site, and I had to change my phone number and move. It was that bad. I had my kids this weekend. Things went great and I went and saw my family. No incidents, we had a great time. Then I got this email. Jill and Marvin kids report that they were in a traffic accident with you this weekend in the truck. They both report that the loud, obscene exchange between their father and the ABC towing driver scared them. They both report that they were bitten by Greg's dog Murphy during their visit at your folks' house this weekend. This is the second dog they have both reported biting them. I have also posted their reports that they have been bitten by a large dog named Betsy at your in-laws' house. They have traumatic memories of metal being scraped out of your leg. I hope that you recover and get back to your job quickly. I hope that Donna is okay. They report that you have trouble walking. This is consistent with behavior I observed at drop-off on Sunday night. You didn't get out of your new car, and it appeared very awkward for you to unbuckle their booster seat belts from the driver's seat. I need to know about these things, please. Dog bites are notoriously dirty and prone to infections. Just because our children didn't appear to be as seriously injured as you were in the truck accident doesn't mean that they couldn't be stiff and sore and possibly have internal injuries for which I need to be observing. At least I need to understand why they were stiff and sore and acting more fearful than usual when they came home. Their mild to moderate bruising and scrapes and the chunks of skin missing from their hands and fingers are consistent with their reports of the accident and the dog bites. I will take Jill and Marvin to the pediatrician walk-in clinic to rule out any unseen injuries and infections. It would be nice if you would call or email the doctor's office and tell them what you can about the accident and the dog bites. It could help rule out tests and treatments that might not be necessary. It would also be nice if you would pay your half of their medical expenses, especially because the accident and the dog bites happened when they were with you. Today is Jill's first day of school. I could have taken them to the doctor 2 days ago if you had shared that they were bitten and in a traffic accident that was bad enough required a tow truck for the truck and medical care for you. If you want to drive the kids to Santa Barbara and back in a weekend, expose them to animals that aren't safe for children, and fight with tow truck drivers in front of them, I cannot prevent that. But what happens to their little growing bodies, and the events that are being imprinted on their sweet, innocent minds, is very much my business. Please share all of the information regarding what happened to our children in the truck accident. Please share all of the information regarding the bites from the dogs. As a mother, it is very worrisome to hear my preschooler and my first grader recount the dangerous things that are happening to them. But it is even more worrisome that my co-parent withholds vital information about their health. Jill and Marvin deserve to know that their parents are working together to take care of them. Thank you. Rest of the post. I don't even know where to begin. The dog that was there had no teeth, didn't bite them, and couldn't have even if it wanted to. My in-law's dog is dead. I was never in an accident. There was no tow truck. All of this is false. I can't even find a shred of a real event that could have gotten twisted. This comes on the heels of 4 days ago, her trying to corner me into signing away 30% of my custody agreement and refusing to let me even look at the details of the paperwork. I am so frazzled by all of this that at times I think about signing away my parental rights just to not have the stress. But I don't want my children thinking I don't care for them and abandoned them. How do you reason with this level of crazy? Any advice is welcome. I need help managing this. TL Didar trying to deal with a crazy ex and barely holding it together for the sake of the kids. Relevant comments from Legal Advice and Relationships. Commenter, why are you so cowed by your ex-wife that her telling you to sign something you don't want to sign causes you stress? It shouldn't be that hard to say no. OP. That is a brief snapshot. When it's every day or every other day, it gets stressful. I never know what accusation is going to be lobbed at me next. When they divorced. 2 years ago, to a deleted comment, yeah. I already spent almost all of my savings to get the custody agreement I have. Dropping another $20K would be tough. To pay for, I'd have to pick up another job, which would then not allow me to access the custody I am wanting. Commenter, turn this over to your lawyer. Please fight this fight. I know it is hard, but can you imagine growing up with a mother who chooses to rewrite history and reality to suit her whims? OOP. Lawyers have been contacted. No response in 3 days. Emailed with this craziness this morning. Still crickets. Commenter, their mild to moderate bruising and scrapes, and the chunks of skin missing from their hands and fingers are consistent with their reports of the accident and the dog bites. So do these things not exist or what? OOP. I didn't see anything. A scrape on the foot from the flip-flop one was wearing, but other than that, nothing. Commenter, how does Donna feel about all of this? OOP. Pissed. It is a major source of conflict in our marriage. Actually, it is just about the only thing we ever argue about. Tangential post, January 1st, 2017, 4+ months later. Title, Legal Rights Surrounding a Primary Custody Parent Who After 4 Attempts Is Not Picking Up Her Children From Me, the Non-Custodial Parent, CA. I am in Southern California. I don't know what to hear. I am the non-custodial parent. I have had the kids for 1 week, 4 and 6, during Christmas break. Due to the high conflict nature of my ex, we have been assigned a co-parenting person to help mediate. On the 30th, we were supposed to exchange the kids back to her care. I showed up 15 minutes early to the location, and we waited for 1 hour and 7 minutes before giving up and leaving. She had been claiming she was right there for over 35 minutes. The location was an IHOP, 300 feet from the freeway exit. After I left, I got a slew of messages calling me all sorts of names and claiming that she had just showed up, but that I had left. This song and dance has happened before. She said she would meet me anywhere just to let her know where. This time I called her bluff and picked a location 2 miles from my home and told her, the kids are hungry and tired of waiting. I'm taking them to my house. When you arrive at the location, 11 miles from the IHOP, text me and let me know, and I'll bring them right over. I sent her the location 5 times in text and twice via email. 4.5 hours later, nothing. I then told her that we could meet at the agreed-upon location at 11 a.m. the next day for the exchange, just 1 day later than planned. When I woke up, the morning she demanded I drive them 1 hour to a new location because she had a 103-degree fever and couldn't drive. There, of course, was a back and forth about her ability to care for children if she was too sick to drive. Ultimately, she failed to arrive at the location at 11 a.m. At 5 p.m., I got a doctor's note stating that she only had a cold, as was fine to care for the children. I didn't ask for this. I then called her and we had a heated back and forth, but ultimately I relented and told her that I would bring them to a location that she chose, 1 hour away and 1 mile from her house, under the agreement that she would show up this time. Before leaving, I sent an email confirming the location and time. That was sent at 7:48 p.m. We arrived at the location at 8:51 p.m. and texted to let her know we were there. What happened next was so frustrating. No response to any text was ever given. Every time I would send a text, I would get an email, all of them stating the same thing, that she would not leave her house until I verified my location. I sent her 6 different responses to emails telling her where I was. All I would get in response is more messages asking me to confirm my location. I even made a phone call telling her where I was. Unfortunately, at this point, I was in such disbelief, I did yell at her and tell her to get her ass down here. Not my finest hour. At 10:21 p.m. With kids in high anxiety and crying that their mom had forgotten them again, we left and drove the hour back home. I have now messages accusing me of child abduction. I don't know what to do. I'm not subjecting my kids to this again. I can't bear to watch them check every car and get excited. I think I see her. Over and over again for hours while she plays these games. My worry is that the cops are going to come knock down my door when I have done everything I can to make these exchanges work. Is this enough to have my lawyers file an emergency hearing to get primary custody? I'm in limbo right now since neither my lawyers or the co-parenting person will be in the office until the 3rd. TLD Dr. Mother has missed 4 exchanges in 2 days. What are my legal rights in this situation? Relevant comment? Commenter, why can't you just drop the kids off at her house if she's not feeling well enough to drive? It sounds like she's playing games and you're letting her. OP, she has told me over and over again not to come to her house under any circumstance. Commenter, was the mediator alerted to this situation when it was occurring? If not, why not? OP, she doesn't check her email or phone over the weekend? Commenter, keep the kids, stop dealing with her shit and file for full emergency custody this week. OOP, she is now stating that she is 5 miles away, waiting for me to deliver the kids. This was not prearranged. Deleted post, July 14th, 2017, 6 months later. Editor's note, thanks to mods for helping me recover this. Title, California. Not sure what my options are with a crazy ex-wife scenario. Literally. I am in the process of a 730 evaluation for primary custody of my kids. 2 kids 7 and 5 today was another doozy of an exchange, and I am fearful for the kids. I don't know what my options are here, if any. My ex was 53 minutes late to the exchange today. At 4:24, she sent me a text stating she was exiting the freeway. That is 2 miles from the meeting spot arranged in co-parenting for today. She doesn't show up until 4:53. Exchange goes okay. But I know something is coming because if she is ever in the wrong, she has to lash out and blame someone else or invent a scenario where she is the victim. I had to wait all of 4 minutes. I got a text stating, I just drove by your car and the back seat was empty. Where are the kids? I said, wasn't my car. I have 2 kids, then knowing where this was going, sent a picture of them in the car. Response. When did you have time to take this? Because I had plenty of time to look at the stoplight. You were alone. It's okay if Donna, my current wife, has them. It's totally legal, just weird to hide it. I then called her. She answered. I said, hi. She said hi. And then I asked the kids to say hi. I then asked the kids, where are we at kids? At this point, she started saying, hello, hello, is there anyone there? I then got a text, thank you for the phone call, but there was no sound. I responded, I am turning off my phone now. These accusations are bizarre. I got back, not as bizarre as pretending to pick up our kids. Just tell me who has them. I called again. Immediately with the hello, hello. I knew for sure it was a game at this point. I just ended the call. She responded, you can't just keep ending conversations because you don't want to deal with the facts. If this turns into another 49-hour abduction like New Year's, I will definitely filing a report. Read the last post on that incident here. This is next level insane. I am terrified for the kids. This is like raising to the level that she needs to be committed. Thoughts apart from just continuing with the psych eval I already have going. Relevant comment. OP, we went back to family court. Court ordered a psych evaluation. That process is about 6 months. We are 1 month into that. Deleted post 2, December 31st, 2019, 2.5 years later. Okay, I want to give the timeline so people understand the full issue I am up against. Basically, my children were hidden from me for 55 hours during my parenting time. Their location and the whole situation, well, I was lied to about the whole time. Been divorced 5 years. 30% custody exchange was to be December 28th, 12 p.m. for my half of Xmas break. Timeline, December 26th. 4 p.m. get a picture of where they are spending Christmas, X and 2 kids, 9 and 7, showing large snowfall and a message saying they are not sure when the snowplows will start. December 27th, 12 p.m. Another picture and message stating same thing, except in the picture you can tell cars have left and come back from first picture, 6 p.m. I tell her, if you get out tonight, I'll come get the kids as planned, in court order, from your house, 12 p.m. December 28th. If you do not get out until the morning, do you want to just bring them by my house, on the way from where she is coming from? I get a thumbs up to that message. 8 p.m. I ask if she got out. No response. December 28th, 9 a.m. I ask for a status update so I know if I need to drive the hour to her house. No response. 10:20 a.m. I ask again for an update. No response. 11 a.m. I leave to drive the hour for exchange, not knowing info. 12 p.m. Exchange time. Arrive at house. Text that I have arrived. Her car is there. Her mom's car is not. She lives with her mom. I videotape the time on the vehicle, verbally notate the time and date. Show her car and the darkened house on the videotape. I assume she has driven up with her mom to where she is snowed in. 12:10 p.m. Finally get a response saying they are still snowed in. No plows yet. 4 p.m. I offer that, since my parents are driving down, and they have a large truck they could swing by and get the kids on their way to my house tomorrow. No response until the next day. Note, I check all roads in the area. All are showing being open and flowing traffic. I even verify with live traffic cams form 1/2 mile from where she is that roads are cleared and cars are driving. I have screenshots of this and the video is time-stamped. December 29th, 8 a.m. She declines this and says we should stick to orders. She also tells me her internet is out. December 29th, 11 a.m. I contact the police about child abduction. I tell them the story. They say, here is an incident number. We are not going to open a case on this. Take it up with the court. 4 p.m. I get a message saying, freeways closing down for the night. Been driving every back road looking for entrances without frozen bridges or backed up with accidents. It's an hour wait every time I fill up. Everybody's sure it'll be better tomorrow. Signals are better at least. I respond asking her to tell me when she leaves. Note, no freeways or highways are shut down. I check all state and local websites to verify. Even check Twitter and local live camera feeds. December 30th, 8 a.m. Call my lawyers. Tell them what is going on. Send them all of the timeline, and they say they will reach out to her attorney. 1 p.m. They finally get in touch with her attorney, and the response back is that she is leaving today, that she will message me when she does, and I can come and get the kids from her place. 2 p.m. I ask for an update from my ex. 4:45 p.m. Still having gotten no communication, I call my lawyers again. They call her lawyer. I finally get a response. I have left. That's all. 6 p.m. Get a message. I am home, you can come get them. 7 p.m., 55 hours past exchange, I get the kids. I ask them about the snow and being stuck. I was not trying to pry information or grill them, just casual light conversation. They tell me that they have been at home for 3 days, since the night of the 27th. Now I am asking some more pointed questions. I ask about what car they drove. They are kids. Maybe the timeline is wrong. They say they were in their mom's car because Grandma had to leave on Christmas Day to be back home, so they drove separately. They say that Mom said I told her she could keep them for 2 more days. I am furious. It was all lies. I am contacting lawyers today. But what are my options here? I want to have a reasonable expectation walking into this. My stance right now is, I need action and need someone else to be as posed about this as I am, or I'll find a lawyer who is. But I do realize my emotions are elevated. Additional note, in the last 2 years I have filed a 730, spent $12K on it. 2-year process. Basically it said I am the better parent, but that she might be improving, and that his suggestion would be to wait a year and do another 730. And if things haven't improved by then, it would be appropriate to swap me to primary custody. That report was produced in April this year. Update post, August 7th, 2024. 8 years from OG post, 4.5 from last update. I was looking in my profile and saw my post in this subreddit from 7 years ago, as my ex was causing so much chaos that I was doubting everything. I took everything to heart and implemented several things right away. I became a gray rock and started documenting my ass off. I consulted my lawyers, and they said they advised several steps, the first of which was a 730 evaluation. This is an evaluation done by a psychologist. That process took a really long time as the 730 evaluator got very sick halfway through. That took 10 months. At the end, the report essentially read, Mom is volatile and disorganized, and that Dad's home would be a more stable home for the children. However, there is hope that Mom is starting to improve, so if things are still bad in 1 year, it would be appropriate to change custody to Dad. This was a tough pill to swallow. Things were not better, and the chaos was just intermittent. So we just kept documenting and doing our thing. Eventually, we started getting a lot of emails from teachers that Jill in particular was often not bathed, never had her homework done, didn't have school supplies, and that she was falling way behind in her studies. We applied for a trial to review custody and asked for primary custody to be swapped to us. That was at the end of 2019, and trial was set for May 2020. So, as you can imagine, once COVID hit, everything got delayed. There was a large amount of events in 2020. COVID shut down. Donna and I had a child, Rebecca, and then my ex started denying visitation to Jill and Marvin. Every 2 weeks I would go down, wait in front of the house. No kids would emerge. Sometimes I would have the police come, not to force anything, but to get the documentation in terms of a case number. This went on for 4 months, before I was able to start getting visitation again. Eventually, the trial was set for summer of 2021 and went for 3 days, and I had over 500 pages of documentation. Day 1 was entirely testimony from the co-parenting therapist we had been seeing for 5 years. She testified that my ex was the most difficult client she had ever worked with in her career, that my ex never followed a single agreement in session, and that she was a pathological liar. Last day of testimony was my ex, where she was caught lying on the stand and was presented with evidence that she had been secretly taking the children to a medical professional for 2 years that I had explicitly not agreed to. So starting in August 2021, the judge ordered the kids come live with me, primary custody, and limiting my ex to 4 days a month. It's now been 3 years. When Jill was in 5th grade, she had a 26% in math and a 40% in English. For the last 3 years, she has maintained a 4.0 every single year and will be starting high school in Honors Geometry, Honors English, and AP Biology. Marvin has also been doing well and just finished his first year of middle school with a 4.0 GPA and is loving his coding and robotics elective. They have new clothes and have learned new skills and responsibilities. Donna has been crucial in setting up patterns to help with success in school. Their rooms are both immaculate, and they are the ones doing it with very little direction from us. They are happy and finally involved in activities and sports. Our little Rebecca adores them both, and I will often find all 3 of them cuddled up together as one of the older 2 reads a book to her. Jill made the decision recently to stop going on visits to her mom. The chaos and drama started being directed at her, along with lack of food, clothes that fit, etc. Marvin is still going for visits, and we are encouraging that as long as he is feeling safe there. All in all, things are going so well and the kids are doing incredible. There are hard moments still, but it has all been worth it, and we are able to shield them for the most part from any chaos their mom may want to start. If anyone is reading this that initially sent advice, thank you. When you are in the thick of it, it is tough to not feel like it is impossible, and you will never be able to overcome it. I needed the outside perspective. TL doctor update to a post about considering giving up custody of my kids to fighting for them for years. Eventually getting custody and turning all of our lives around for the better. Relevant comment. Commenter cheered when I heard both the kids got their grades up. You've set them on the right path, sir. Good work. OP. Thanks. We knew they had the ability. It is amazing what can happen when kids have support with HW and a routine to follow every day. Soon they start believing in themselves and then setting their own lofty goals. Jill has dreams of becoming an investigative journalist. Marvin would like to become a nuclear engineer. Story 6. Iata for telling my wife that pregnancy isn't an excuse. Final update 1 year later. Original post, February 24th, 2023. I, 36, and my wife, 28, have been trying hard for a baby and finally got lucky with one. Although now that she is pregnant, it seems like she is using it to her advantage. She recently adopted a cat, which I'm allergic to, and said, "Think of the baby," or The baby needs a buddy, I gave in, but kept my distance around the cat. Whenever I ask her to help with some chores around the house, she always said she can't because of the baby. I tried communicating to her that I don't want the baby to be an excuse for everything. She began to yell at me, screaming, saying I have no idea what it's like to be pregnant and to get over it. It hurt me, I will admit. I stayed quiet and did everything she asked. I needed a break, no doubt. I had cleaned the house every day, went to work, took care of the cat she wanted while she quit her job and stayed home doing nothing but watching TV and ate. I did her makeup for her like she asked, rubbed her feet, massaged her, but it never seemed to be enough. One day I asked her if I could just go hang out with my friends for a bit, and she got mad and started screaming at me, saying that she needed me here. What about the baby? I was so tired and fed up that I told her to stop using her pregnancy as an excuse to get away with things. I cared about the baby, but I will not stand for this. She called me an asshole and I walked out. Aita, relevant comments. OOP had 183, so I narrowed down as much as possible. Important comment. Before the pregnancy, we always shared chores, and I did everything equally, or what we considered equal. We never had any problems with communication or anything, but after she got pregnant, things changed slowly. But surely at first it was simple things as she couldn't bend over and tie her shoes, or she couldn't bend to a certain extent, which I understand, and I completely did everything for her, no questions asked. But as time passed, it gradually got worse. She couldn't do laundry. She couldn't cook a meal. She couldn't vacuum. Hell, she couldn't even check the mail. Everything was practically on top of me. I didn't even have time to visit friends or do anything for myself outside of getting money and providing for the baby wife and cleaning the household. I felt the odds were mostly on top of me. She never contributed anymore. She kept using the baby as an excuse, or her pregnancy as an excuse, and I understand if she had complications with her pregnancy or if it was a high risk, but the doctors never said anything about her pregnancy causing any complications. Then it got to the point where I had to do massages for her and makeup and nails and buy her expensive maternity clothing because she still wanted to look pretty. And I understand wanting to a pretty because she might have insecurities. But again, I was taking money out to buy her all of these things that she wanted to look pretty, and they were pretty expensive. She wanted a very pretty robe she saw on TikTok. It cost $160, not to mention that we didn't spend as much money on the baby as much as I would like. We only got the baby a week's worth of clothes, while you, wife, got a lot more. She's been doing things out of impulses, such as buying a cat that she knows that I am allergic to. I tried brushing everything off as pregnancy hormones, but it just doesn't seem to be that case anymore. More about his plans for the cat. OP. I just wish I could actually love cats the way people without allergies can, but sadly I can't. I want to give an animal I genuinely want all the love and affection and support I can offer, but sadly I'm very limited because of the cat, not to mention I barely have time for the cat. I want someone who can love the cat much more than I ever could to adopt him. He is a sweet guy, but just not for me, which is okay too. To a different commenter, shelters yes, but I want good quality shelters. I don't want a no-kill shelter to be horrible breeding grounds or anything else. I've never owned or adopted an animal, but want them to be loved and cared for. If people have suggestions to actual good animal shelters, I would love to hear. To a third. And while my allergies may be minor, doesn't mean I still want to be cautious around my own house or take other measurements. Personally, I don't see any problems with me not wanting my house because I'm allergic. Even if it is minor, it's still an allergy. I hope you see where I'm coming from. I love cats, don't get me wrong, they're adorable. They can be loving and kind, but it's just not for me, especially with an allergy, so more caution. Commenter, bro, she's pregnant, not disabled. Now, if she was 8 to 9 months, that is a different story in regards to pampering and house chores, but make up. Get ready for a long ride, my dude. OP. The only thing about it was she acts like it's a high-risk pregnancy, that she can't do anything, she isn't though, and is 6 months pregnant. Not to mention that our finances have been going more to her than the actual baby. Commenter. Going to her how? At 6 months, the only extra money she needs are maybe maternity clothes, good prenatal vitamins, and some money for fast food cravings or little extras like that. We're currently 5 months and spending a ton, but it's all going to the nursery like it should. OOP. Well, for example, on TikTok she saw this cute maternity robe. It cost $160, expensive as hell, and yes, we spent money on a crib and a week worth of clothes for the baby, while got much more than a week of maternity clothing. Commenter. That hurts my heart. I'd love fancy things, but I'd never imagine asking my husband for something outside of our budget when we're prepping for a baby. You're spoiling her, which is maybe your way of trying to show her you care, but look at what it's doing. She needs a reality check. OOP. I plan on discussing budgeting with her, definitely go to couples therapy, getting personal therapy, and giving the cat to a no-kill shelter. If there's any other suggestions, please do tell. This is my first time during a pregnancy, and I wasn't able to read the book or anything because of the fact that I have to do so much to provide for her and the baby. What do you mean by you walked out? OP. By walked out, I mean I left the house and went to hang out with my friend, but sadly the hanging out turned more into me talking about all the problems I had with my wife. Commenter NTA. As others have said, unless she's medically at risk in some way, there is no reason to suddenly cease all normal activities. Did you both discuss this beforehand? Did you tell her it was fine to quit working and you would take care of everything? OP. She also did not discuss her quitting her job. She kind of just told me in the middle of dinner one day. It's hard to provide for both a baby, me, and her alone, so I had to get multiple jobs. Makeup thing. OP. For the makeup part? I figured it was the right thing to do. She told me she was exhausted and tired, so I just did those things for her thinking that she needed it, or she would appreciate it. Commenter. Is your post even real, dude? Why did she quit her job? Why would you need to do everything? I can't believe you did her makeup and all that after it too. This can't be real. OOP. I'm not sure why she quit her job, but I can assure you that the post is real. If you don't believe me, that's fine too. But the reason why I feel I need to do all of this stuff is because she's pregnant. All I ever wanted to do really was to make her happy and make her comfortable during this time. I don't know what it's like to be pregnant, nor have I ever really been around people who was pregnant. It was a completely new area for me. Since she was the one who is going through all of this, I just went by what she said. I trusted her and what she told me, but over time it became more difficult, more demanding, and overall couldn't be happy. I am luckily seeking a personal therapist now, and I have an appointment in a week. Update in comments later that night. I recently talked to my wife about couples marriage and personal therapy. She agreed that personal therapy was a must, as I apparently been having all the issues in this relationship since she got pregnant, although she said that couple therapy was not something she wanted to do. When I asked her reasoning for this, she simply replied by saying, "Too much stress for me and the baby. Why are you making this such a big deal?" When I simply tried explaining how other moms suggested it being good and healthy, she blew up on me again saying, "Why are you talking to other girls? Do you not trust me?" I'm not sure how the conversation went immediately to that. I was adamant about the couple therapy, as I wanted to see our child grow up together and didn't want our relationship to fail. To this she responded, "I'm afraid our relationship is too far from saving." I'm completely devastated about how the conversation played out. I'm not sure what to do, but she barricaded the bedroom door, and I'm forced to sleep on the couch. I called my friend to stay the night at his place, and hopefully things will change in the morning. I'm sorry this didn't go the way we all hoped for. Relevant comments. Commenter. When speaking to the divorce lawyer, ask about custody arrangements and the house, sort it out before baby is born, or it will be impossible to get anything, house-wise, fairly while there is a newborn there. You get on top of this, and speak to friends and family about how you aren't allowed to do XYZ and do all chores and housework. Tell them you are being abused and ask for their support. OOP. I'll definitely consult into adult divorce lawyer, but honestly I do feel very guilty for what I said. I felt as though I was gaslighted. She kept trying to turn the whole subject around, basically blaming me that this was my fault, that I didn't do enough or I should behave better. I don't know what it's like to be pregnant. I never been around pregnancy, and I hate using an excuse. but I honestly have no idea what I'm doing or what I could do better. All of this is the first time, and I figured since she was going through it, she would be the most helpful person, although turns out it was the complete opposite. Commenter: in about 3 months, you're going to learn the meaning of unconditional love. It truly blindsides you, and there's no way to prepare yourself. Just know that it will happen. Her behavior will look even worse in light of that feeling because everything will be gauged by how it affects your child and their health, happiness, and overall well-being. OOP. Thank you, really. Everyone has been such a help. They really opened my eyes about what's really going on. I just need to take some time to grieve. Definitely talk to a therapist. It seems that my relationship has sunk. All I need to focus on now is the baby and getting my mental state back in place. Update Post 1. February 25th, 2023, next day, my wife's sister went to talk to her and she got back to me. Apparently my wife wasn't acting like her normal self. The way she described my wife was paranoid, upset easily and speaking nonsense. I don't quite understand, but her sister told me that we should definitely speak to the doctor about it. I'm afraid and fear the worst. I asked if I should come over. She said that might not be the best plan, and she will take a week off of work to help take care of her sister if anything was to happen. That she doesn't seem able to take care of herself. I agreed it would be the best course of action for right now. I'm not sure what to do now. I've never been through this before. Any help? Update Post 2. March 18th, 2023, 3 weeks later. So I will keep this short but straight to the point. My wife went to the doctors, and she has something called postpartum psychosis. I got the information from my sister-in-law. I've been doing my research about it as I know little about this diagnosis. I've came to ask for reliable sources and what to do. How can I help her? Any help is appreciated. Whether you've been through it, have experience, or just know anything about it. I thought postpartum happened after pregnancy, but this is a whole new concept. Relevant comment? Commenter: you need to get in contact with a doctor before she becomes a risk to herself or the baby. Call the damn paramedics if you need to if she becomes completely resistant to speaking with medical professionals. In DMS, I mentioned how she might be suffering from a prenatal form of PPD-PPA. And I know you can't get in contact with her OB, but any doctor you speak to will be able to contact them for you if you know their name. There's nothing more you can do but get her help. OOP. I'll definitely see if her sister can help me get in contact. Since she is there, I'll ask her to send me contact information and I'll call them immediately. Update Post 3, March 25th, 2023. 1 week later, 1 month from OG Post. According to a lot of comments and chat messages I received, it's actually called prepartum psychosis, which I am very grateful for the correct term. As I was never really in the doctor's office when this was spoken, I was just referring to everything that my SEIL told me. Thankfully, I have the correct term, which I'm going to be doing even more studying about this diagnosis. Thank you all for your support, help sources, etc. I also realize that I have a lot of typos, which makes my story seem a little unbelievable. Which is true, I don't blame you. In all honesty, I never proofread, so I'm going to have a lot of typos. Are you trying to fix the typos as much as I can to make my story seem a little bit more sense, but the typos haven't all been caught. If you also see some lettering spaced together, that's because I was trying to save as much space as possible to write, as I am only limited to a certain amount. Not to mention because some of them are spaced together and create a new word. So I do apologize in advance, and I do thank everybody who has been helping me. Update Post 4, February 28th, 2024, 11 months later, 1 year from OG Post. It's over, officially over. We got a divorce, and I would like to say how incredibly grateful I am for everything. The divorce and custody was a huge pain, but we got through it. I so desperately wanted everything to work out for the best, but there was too much damage and wreckage. Lots of stress and fighting. I will do whatever I can as a father to protect and raise my baby. Thank you everyone who has been with me throughout this journey, and I'm grateful to say I'm in a happier place. Story 7. Me and my brother will never be the same because of a fake wedding. Original post. Me, 30, F, and my brother, 31, M, have always been as close as twins. Our closeness is a foundation in our family. One of the true consistent relationships, obviously not in a weird way. When we fight, which is never or small fights, the whole family feels it and tries to fix it because of how unnatural it feels for everyone. He gave me away at my wedding. I named a child after him. We have matching tattoos. We talk on the phone almost every day. He started planning his wedding. He asked me to be a groomsman, while his friend, 35-ish, F, would be his best man. Everyone thought this was odd because of his role at my wedding, and none of us really know / have met his friend. I expressed how it hurt my feelings and was met with, "My wedding isn't about you." Okay, fine, I'll do what you ask. During the planning, he called me every day. We sent ideas. I helped with making stuff. I didn't mind. I decided early on to not focus on titles, but just to make this day as amazing as possible for my brother. He asked me to be flower fairy because this was a gay, child-free wedding. I agreed. During the process of dress, shoe-picking him and the best man would shoot down all of my ideas. She would send very basic heels that were around $100. Heck no. I told her my budget was $45 for shoes, especially for plain gold heels. The wedding party all had very mean girl mentality. I felt it from day one. There was the wedding party, and then me. I chalked this up to not really knowing them well, and proximity. All of them live in a different state than me. They even went as far as saying the shoes I like were too slutty. They were the type of small heels that place up around your calf or around your ankle. After this, I begged to come as a guest, so I could wear what I want and not feel this weird mean girl mod mentality from the rest of the wedding group. My brother says, "No way. I can't get married without you being by my side." I get to the state the wedding will be, and the first day I'm there I find out best man had the bachelor party the night before I got there. Everyone from the wedding party was included aside for me. I let it go and focus on the wedding and doing my part. So I slap on some wings, dance my way down the aisle, and give my very first wedding speech. All goes well. The wedding was awesome until the drag show. Yes, they had a drag show at their wedding. During the show, one of the queens comes on and basically announces that this was all fake because my brother and his partner had gotten married 1 year prior. I turn to the rest of the wedding party and ask, did they know? They did. They were at the real wedding. Everyone but me. I'm sitting there trying to process, and my mom, who gave them $3,000 for the wedding because they needed it, storms up to ask if I knew. I told her no, and she immediately switched to being supportive to me because of how bad the situation was. It's not about them already being married. They can do what they want. I myself spent over $4,000 on this wedding. Because I was coming from out of state, I had to get a plane ticket. I paid for a week at an Airbnb. One night, most of the wedding party stayed at the house I rented because they didn't have anywhere else to stay, and did not even offer to pay for any of it. The dress for the wedding, the fairy wings I handmade, all of it. I spent too much time and money on this wedding. But then I start to remember all of the lies. They got married, and 3 days after my brother was at my house while I have birth to my last child, because I always want him a part of my huge moments. He held my newborn, knowing he had just gotten married, and said nothing. They gaslight me, saying I was crazy feeling left out. Him saying he can't get married without me, lying to my face every single day for a year. Just all of it. After realizing all of this, I tried to leave without making a sense. His husband mockingly asked me if I was mad. I said I'd talk to them another day and they should enjoy their night. I was able to leave without anyone else at the wedding knowing I was upset. Before I could leave, the happy couple pulls me into a room. My brother is crying, saying he didn't do this to hurt me. I keep it together, say enjoy your night and we will talk another day. His husband says, "Oh, so there is something to talk about then?" I repeat, "We can talk another day." They ask me to brunch. I say I'll see if I'm up, ready for it when they go. The next morning I realize the whole wedding party and some guests are going to lunch. I choose not to go because I am not going to put myself in a situation where I am ganged up on, again over my feelings about the wedding and wedding party. After that I left the wedding chat on Snap, which they were notified of. At this point it's the next morning and his husband starts blowing me and my friend, who was with me, up. We ignore and go about our day. I have not looked at or spoken to my brother since, aside from short responses to get me to the airport the day I left. When I left, I asked them to crop me out of the wedding photos, as I didn't want to be associated with a fake wedding, and I didn't want a reminder of how embarrassing it was and how stupid I looked. I told them I didn't want to speak to them again. My brother says nothing, and his husband says, "You're a narcissist, and I feel bad for the people who have to deal with you. Pretty sure narcissistic more aligns with tricking 100 people into coming to a wedding, some of the wedding that was paid for by other people, just to tell everyone, haha, this was just a giant party for us. Joke's on you is probably more narcissistic than me reacting to the time, money, energy spent to attend a fake wedding, but all right, LOL. I just don't know where to go from here. I have them both blocked. There is a line in our family. My brother has not tried to fix it. He has the chance to show me what I meant to him. He did. And now I have to believe him. I'm going to try to update in sections. 1. I guess to answer if he is in an abusive relationship that really is up to each person to decide. I will not and won't label him as abusive because I'm not in that relationship with them. My mentioning of the drag queens was because they are a part of the story. Hello, it was one of the queens that made the announcement. I'm not sure why some of you are taking that as me being anything phobic. Mentioning that somebody is gay or that drag queens attended a wedding is a part of a story, and it's factual. It's not anything phobic. Our family, as well as new husband's family, have always been nothing but supportive and accepting. My mom. My mom has 2 kids who are very hurt. She could never hate my brother, but she definitely does not like the decisions that he has been making. She is doing her best to support her 2 children. Gay wedding. No kids allowed. 2 separate statements, LOL. They definitely did not ban gay children from their wedding. LOL. I mentioned both of these things to explain why I was a flower fairy. No kids, flower girl. Fairy to go along with the gay dragon theme? Hello, people. I proudly slap those wings on and dance my way down the aisle. That is definitely not anything phobic, LOL. For those of you who are saying anything along those lines, you were definitely reaching and projecting. Using narcissistic when it actually does not apply to the person, in my opinion, is trying to weaponized. More info in the comments July 17th, 2023. Top questions! For some reason I cannot edit my post to add this, so hopefully most of you will see it. Me and new husband, as far as I know, did not have any hard feelings going into the wedding. There was a time when they were dating that I expressed I didn't like the fact that my brother was working 2 jobs for a new husband to try to become a music producer. I watched my brother kill himself for years to try to support both of them while he sat around smoking weed in his studio, and ever since then, new husband decided that I hate him, even though we have since squashed all of those issues when he got a job and started contributing. Even when we did not get along, I always made it very clear if my brother loves you, and I love you too. Both families have been very supportive. There is no homophobia or anything like that on either side. Is my brother in an abusive relationship? I don't know. I guess that's what each individual person would consider abusive. I don't want to label my brother's partner unfairly as abusive when I'm not in a relationship myself, and my brother has never expressed feeling abused. I think if you consider this behavior manipulative and abusive, then that's up to your own discretion. However, I am not going to give anyone that label. I didn't decide this was a fake wedding. They did when they decided to announce in the middle of the ceremony that they were already married. They made it a fake wedding when they announced that it was fake. LOL, hello? 5. Russian bots. Pushing propaganda, okay, people? I only mentioned the fact that there was a drag show at the wedding because that is a very uncommon thing. I found out that my brother had been married for a year and had been lying to my face via drag queen announcements. That is just stating the facts. That has absolutely nothing to do with the drag community, or how myself or anybody else should feel about them. They were paid to do a job, and they showed up and did what they were paid to do. I have no ill will towards anybody in any type of community. Those of you who are saying mentioning them comes off as judgmental or very much for reaching. For those of you who think it's weird that I did not mention that he was gay, why is that weird? And why is that relevant to the story, LOL? The people who had their panties in a wad probably have more of an issue with the community than I do. Stop making this post about anything other than what it is about. At the end of the day, I am mourning the loss of my brother. I am mourning the relationship that I thought him and I had. And to be honest, based off of my perspective of our closeness, I am honestly questioning my own sanity. Do you generally spend hours talking to somebody, getting matching tattoos, planning a wedding, being at holidays and childbirth with somebody that you're not close with? At least on my end, I did not make up how close I was with my brother if it was not reciprocated, and he is a very good actor. And honestly, me questioning our closeness has been the most hurtful part about this entire experience. It's made me question if I'm crazy or not. Gay wedding, child-free. Two separate statements. It was not a wedding where they did not invite gay kids, LOL. For anyone who read it like that, you are extra weird. My brother is obviously gay and got married to a man. Therefore, it is a gay wedding. Children were not allowed to attend the wedding there for a child-free. Two separate things, people. Both are okay. And I also want to say that I would never have slapped fairy wings on my back and danced down the aisle if I was not 100% supportive of them. Please stop trying to make this an issue other than two siblings having a falling out. Another comment, July 17th, 2023. Okay, ow. I feel like you are very much twisting the story, LOL. I did not make sure everyone knew I was leaving the wedding. I actually left very discreetly at almost midnight when the wedding was ending at 1 a.m. I did not make my brother cry. His now husband kept trying to force a conversation that I asked respectfully multiple times to not have the night of the wedding, so that way it would not ruin their day. I showed up in every single thing my brother asked of me. I took the bullying, and it kept my mouth shut for most of it after I was accused of trying to make the wedding about me. From that point on, I went out of my way to do everything I could to make his day as special as I could for him. Comment about her husband, July 17th, 2023. Brother tried to contact my husband to ask how to pay back what I spent to come to the wedding. My husband said that he was not going to get involved. Brother tried to convince my husband that I was overreacting. My husband told brother that is absolutely not true, and I have every right to be upset, and what he did was bonkers. My husband very much has been supportive, but also is very sad to see me and my brother fighting like this. Update 1. Update. I'm the Flower Fairy, July 19th, 2023. I'm going to do my best to put as much information as I can, but it ends up really long, and Reddit will not let me post. So I'm going to try to answer all of the questions, and I'm going to paraphrase a lot. The update is, there is no update. Things are the same. They are still blocked. One suggestion was that I should write him a letter, which I actually did do the day after this happened, and I left it in his room. I laid out all of my feelings and describe in detail how hurt I was. We had a 2-hour drive where he said absolutely nothing, even after reading my letter. I did end up losing all of my manners when I landed, and my husband informed me that he sent him a message basically saying that I was overreacting. I said a lot of things that I was not very proud of. At the end of the day, I stand by my truth, and I stand by my perspective of what happened. Please stop trying to make this a phobia issue. Both families have been nothing but supportive. They represent themselves, not an entire group of people. Stop being so simple-minded. The mention of drag queens was only there because one of the queens announced that they had gotten married a year ago. Plus, how many times do you see a drag show at a wedding? If you read some imaginary undertone, that is definitely a you issue. Moving on. New husband, in my opinion, is not somebody that I would label as abusive. However, abuse is subjective. I think this more falls down to him being very emotionally immature. I'm not a yes man. I was, for the wedding, that's an appropriate time to be a yes man. Outside of that, new husband has always been intimidated by my opinion. I think he knows I can see through his BS. Weak men hate strong women. That's a fact. And that's the case here. However, we did not have any type of beef on the wedding day, or for years before. I made it clear if my brother loves you and wants to spend his life with you, then I support that. My mom is trying her best to be as supportive as she can to both of her kids. She could never hate my brother, although she absolutely hates what he did. As far as I go, I don't know who I am without my brother. He was just as important to me as my children and my husband. It was always me and him. To say that I am mourning is an understatement. This whole situation has made me question a 30-year relationship. Realizing his capability to live a double life that I'm not a part of has rocked my entire world and my entire sense of reality. I'm not okay. I'm going to spend the next year being no contact. I'm going to go to therapy and get my mind, body, and soul in the best place possible, while pushing as much good karma into the world as I can. Maybe then I will be able to decide if I want to close that door fully and permanently, or if I'm at a place where I'm willing to create a new normal with him. At the end of the day, I am absolutely devastated and heartbroken. I also want to address frequently asked things. 1. Baby was #5. No fear of being overshadowed. The date that they got married was because it was a dating anniversary for them. Nothing to do with me or my pregnancy. 2. I am aware that people get married and have a large ceremony later. That's okay. It's not what they did. It's how they did it. 3. I am not a Russian bot trying to push propaganda, lol. Those comments did make me laugh, though. 4. If I had the answer to why they would feel comfortable doing this to me, then I guess I wouldn't be as dumbfounded as I am. I'm not leaving out any type of detail. Honestly, it would be a lot easier if I did something so horrible to deserve this, because then I wouldn't have to wonder why. I'd know. At the end of the day, I'm not okay. I don't know if there's anything he could do to fix this. I'll always wonder if he's telling me the truth or what he's hiding. After the way that his husband spoke to me, and after him allowing him to do that, I'm honestly so disgusted with both of them. I deleted the original post because I didn't want them to be attacked. Sadly, I still have a need to try to protect him. I don't know you guys. Here, July 23rd. Brother-in-law here. I'll just start by saying, for one, having a big wedding ceremony 1 year later was not my idea. But once we decided that we were going to do it, we consulted many times about telling people beforehand, for fear of things like this happening. I've never had a great relationship with Op, but we've tried to make things work mostly for my husband, her brother, because I knew they were very close, and while I wasn't too fond of her due to our interactions in the past, I know how important those close relationships are and would never wish to tear that apart. Op didn't want to talk about it at all. We tried to apologize and explain that the intention was never for any humiliation or insult to anyone at all, but she wouldn't have any conversation about it, especially the night of. The next day at the Airbnb, I tried to open a dialogue with Op about how she was feeling, and she only responded with snark and comments about how there's nothing to talk about. That's the small conversation where the "so there is something to talk about" statement was said by me. I eventually let it be and left the room. Everything that was said by her didn't help me or anyone understand really how she felt about it, and the little she did say seemed very self-centered and about how this was a plan to humiliate her specifically, which it was most definitely not. Reading through this now, though, I do understand a bit more why she felt that way, and for that I truly am sorry. Anyway, I'm not entirely sure how these work or if there's a proper way to post this, but ask me anything IG. /exact_butterscotch40 reply. All I'm going to say is you both are married now and you made your choice. You both are a partnership. You both collectively decided to do this and decided it was a good idea, and the consequences is, I want nothing to do with either one of you ever again. That's it. There is no reason or purpose to keep having an open dialogue about this, because it's done. And you starting out your post with "you don't like me" pretty much confirmed everything that I said. I wish you and him nothing but happiness, but this conversation is over. I've heard your side of things, and it still isn't good enough to justify what you both did. And I'm choosing to walk away from both of you. /exact_butterscotch40 made another reply. Here, July 19th, 2023. He admits in the text above he knew. He literally says we didn't want to tell people because they were there and happy. He knew what he was doing. It was a huge manipulation. Lying to people to get what you want is manipulation. Omitting things from people to not give them the power to make a fair choice is also very much manipulation. They knew what they were doing. At the sentence, the other people said, "Brother doesn't value sister the same way. That's it. That's the end of the argument. They both showed me exactly what I meant to them." The motivation behind it is not really important anymore. Maybe this was just a total oversight and a mistake, but regardless, the result was the same, and the consequence remains the same. I want nothing to do with y'all. I wish you happiness because I will always love N. If you make him happy, then I am so happy for the both of you. Truly I am. Our relationship was the sacrifice for this day, and you both decided to make it. I reacted to it and was trying to sort through my feelings by posting on this podcast. I did not expect for it to go viral, so for that I am sorry. I did try to remove the post, but it was too late. I realized that you don't like me due to past interactions. And that's fine, so what I'm about to say won't matter. My heart is completely shattered. I'm literally going through a mourning process like someone died. Because that night the relationship N and I did die. He has always been my person. He isn't now, and I've never felt more alone. I honestly don't know if I'm going to be okay. Both of your responses just confirm everything I said and everything I felt. You have your side, I have mine, but ultimately everyone is feeling the lose of me and N. This changes everything in the family. I'm going to continue to root for both of you. Always. But I am going to do it from my side of the world. In an emergency, either of you can call me and I'll be there. But outside of that, I am good on both of you. You don't like me. I'm out of your life now. You don't get to defer to when it comes to me, but want to orchestrate our conversation after he did what he did. You are not a safe place for me, just like I'm sure you feel like I'm not either. You win. Go be with N. Go have a happy life. Happy? 8 Marshmallows commented to the BL. I have some questions. Why did the brother not tell her you were married for an entire year? I get surprising most of the guests, but his sister and mom. It feels very mean. Why wasn't OP allowed to back out of the wedding party? Did you really call her a narcissist? U/objective_code_5948. The decision to keep it a secret was in hindsight. A bad choice, I'll admit openly for sure. As for the rest of it, it's tough because while it was definitely tense between us, I never wanted to make anything worse. So if I ever had to deal with OP in any way, I would always defer to her brother on how to do so. Me reading all of this was the first I'm ever hearing about her wanting to back out of the wedding party, so when it comes to that, I have absolutely no idea. To be honest, I am a diagnosed ADHD haver, so I'm not super great at planning, and anyone who knows both of us knows brother is the type, a planner person, so I wasn't as involved in the wedding party planning thing. I wish I said what I said in a different way, but yes, I did say that after she refused to talk to anyone for 2 days, and once brother drops her off at the airport, she decides to put us both in a text group chat and absolutely go TF off about how she can say her piece and she can stand by her truth, and she won't hear a word of anything else from anyone else. I know it was mean, and at the time I did want to convey that. I wish I didn't say it, but it's too late. About the surprise, hindsight is 20/20. I was very fearful of a grand upset, and I'm pretty sure brother was too. We talked about it. But it was like one of those things where someone texts you, and you forget to text back, and then after a while it's just too awkward to say anything because it's been too long. Obviously, the magnitude of these things are vastly different, and I'm aware of that. But when we decided we were going to do it, we just stuck to our guns, and the time just flew by, and before you know it, it's the week of the wedding, and people are here from out of town, and there's so much to do. And by that point, we thought about telling specifically her and some other key family members. But figures it's been so long already, and rather than have a possible huge blowout that could be so bad, it could maybe result in the wedding not even happening. Everyone seems happy right now, so we'll just wait and hope for the best. And here we are. Dumb decisions were made, and that sucks. That comment is the only mean thing I said to her the entire week, and it was after trying so hard to smooth things over specifically with her and brother, and getting cold shoulder followed by weird accusations. She can hate me, and that's fine, but brother doesn't deserve the vitriol that was omitted by Op's posts, and I was hoping for things to work out. The section above was particularly my perspective at the time, given that I only had the little bit of her perspective that I had to filter through all the anger it was encased in. I feel a bit more sympathetic now. TBH, I still don't agree with everything, but I understand more now. And again, I'm sorry for how painful it really was. I wish things could have been done differently. I really do. Sorry for the huge run on sentences. D_Bitterball. So now you're placing the majority of the blame on your husband, OP's brother? Way to be a partner to your new husband. I have it, HUD. How does that absolve you from being a person? The only truthful thing I'm seeing here is that you didn't really like OP due to past interactions. Objective_coat_5948. I'm not placing blame on anyone, I'm just saying what happened. The ADHD doesn't absolve anything, nor was it intended to. I'll 100% admit my part of the wrong, but I didn't mastermind anything like everyone is assuming I did. We made a dumb choice that led to hurt, and I apologize for that truly. But I won't just let 3K people accuse me of something I didn't do without at least trying to clarify from my POV. There's a whole arc of shit between me and Op from years ago that was left completely out of all her posts, and she knows that. Final comment from the BL. Alar, well, I've said my bit, I've apologized, I tried to smooth things over as much as I have the ability to. I don't have any ill will towards anyone, and I never have. It wasn't supposed to hurt anyone, but it did, and that sucks major booty. I didn't mastermind anything. This wasn't my idea. I said a mean thing in the end after being blasted in the texts. No one's perfect. You've made up your minds about me from a one-sided perspective, and that's okay. This is Reddit. At the end of the day, all the people who have opinions on this in the comments weren't there, and don't know the people involved at all IRL. Wish you all the best with your future endeavors, for I really do mean it. But yeah. Here, July 23rd, 2023. Yo, slap happy pap. Welp, I was at this wedding, though I was not a member of the wedding party. I agree that a lot of what happened with Op on this is fucked up, but I'm calling bullshit on some of the things that was said by her brother's husband, or at least the tone it was said in, or the way it was interpreted maybe. That man might just be the most stand-up guy I know. He quickly became a best friend of mine when he became my boss over a year ago. I've seen him go above and beyond to help out people he's not even fond of. The only scenario in which I see him doing these types of things is if Op said some things she's omitting from the post. Second thing I'm calling bullshit on. The entire wedding party was not at the lunch the next day. I was there, and 2 members of 6 were present. Op's brother's best man was there, and so was one other. There was a plan for everyone to go, but everyone had their own thing they needed to do. Lots of stuff needed to be driven around, etc. Again, what happened with Op was fucked up. Even from the point of view I heard it from, which was her brother's husband. And I'm sure I know probably 10% of what actually went down with all of this. But there's 2 sides to every story. In this case, there's more like 4. Her not being at their actual wedding makes sense given that she had just moved to the East Coast and the wedding was on the West Coast. That, and as she mentioned, she gave birth 3 days later. If it was my sister, she would have known at least. And she would have been best man for me at the wedding party, but that's me. I wouldn't be surprised if some of this was exaggerated based on what I know, which again isn't much. The Juicy Juice replied, there are always 2 sides to a story for sure, but let's take away all the narrative and leave in the main issues here. OP spent a lot of time, effort, and money on the wedding, having been led to believe the whole way through the process that it was a real wedding, when the rest of the groom's people all knew except for her that it wasn't. She was led to believe that she was one of the most important people there. She did what was asked of her by fairy dancing down the aisle, which not everybody would have the guts to do, to only then have it sprung on her that it was all fake in a humiliating way. Man, I'd be so gutted by doing what they did, how they did it. She probably feels really hurt and like they took away her important part in the wedding in those few short seconds. And then she realized she was the only one who didn't know. Oof! Kick a fairy when she's down. It really could have been far better thought out. I'll be honest, I would feel like the butt of the joke and really embarrassed. I think most people would. We all make mistakes, and some damage control is certainly needed to rebuild bridges. Hope they work it out. I don't know what I'd do without my brothers and sisters in my life. You slap happy pap. 100%, and I agree with just about everything you said. My point is that she made assumptions about at least 2 things, one of which was the lunch I was at. She assumed it was a big lunch that included everyone but her, when that was far from the case. It was me and 3 others. I picked where we ate 5 minutes before we went. I did nothing more than attend the wedding and stay overnight because I drove 90 minutes there. And most of the actual wedding party wasn't present at that lunch. In fact, the groom said they weren't going because they wanted to talk to and spend time with Op. So what else did she make assumptions about? I know she's assumed her brother's husband put him up to this and that it was all his idea. She said that in the comments. This was not the case at all. The whole thing about not telling anyone was her brother's idea. Again, to reiterate, she's valid in feeling the way she does about a lot of these things. And again, I know way less than she does, or her brother's husband. But I'm willing to bet that if her and her brother had a conversation about it, a lot of the air would get cleared. Would it completely mend her wounds? No. But they both should be willing to do that. I'm surprised to hear he didn't talk at all in the car with her. That's unfortunate. And to be clear, I don't know Op. We shook hands and introduced ourselves at the beginning of the wedding. That's the extent of my knowing her. Clearly I'm biased, because I know her brother's husband well, and her brother pretty well at this point too. Slap Happy Pap left one final comment. Well, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. As for me, I'm out of this shit show. Update 2. New update. Moving on July 25th, 2023. Moving on. If you're reading this, you're here because you are super invested in my family's tea. LOL. But really, I'm okay. I'm going to be okay, or maybe I won't. Either way, I'm going to keep moving forward, and if you want to come along with me, you can follow me on TikTok. I'm not trying to be an influencer. I'm just going to use it as a diary. Coping, safe space. My name on there is Takar29. New update. It's been 6 months. Flower Fairy update, February 6th, 2024. I wish I could be writing that my brother had begged for my forgiveness, that things somehow managed to go back to how they were. But they haven't. Nothing with my situation has changed. The only thing they truly changed was my perception of someone I thought I knew. I know a lot of people can't understand because you're not close with a sibling. But this has been like a true death for me. And sometimes my grief's so big I don't know what to do with it. He hasn't reached out. He hasn't explained. He hasn't even cared if I'm being fully honest, and what a mindfuck that has been. To go from someone being as important to you as your husband and children, to them showing you over and over how little you do, and ever did mean to them. He has doubled down on the, I didn't do anything wrong, and you're overreacting, which is honestly just the biggest slap in the face. If someone can't admit they did something wrong, then they will never actually be sorry, and the chances of behavior repeating itself and sky high. A lot of you pointed out our relationship might have only been this important to me, and I think you all were right. For a long time I cried every day. I cried during the times we would normally talk on the phone, or when a song reminded me of him. And sometimes I've cried for no reason at all other than just feeling like there is a hole in me now. But I find myself crying less and less. And sometimes when I think of him, my first thought that follows will be, wow, it's been days since he has even crossed my mind, and I guess that's progress, right? I'm not crying every day anymore, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't still shedding tears. Tears he doesn't deserve, but they come anyways. Because that's the thing about unconditional love. It still exists even when the other person broke your heart. It doesn't go away. But sometimes the other person can just no longer have access to the unconditional anymore. We have spoken, briefly, over the phone during the holidays to deal with a family emergency involving another family member. It was pretty much all business. Everyone around us kept saying, I'm so glad you guys are talking again. But we weren't talking again. We were just dealing with business. And I guess that's all the talking we will ever do again. At one point, my husband chimed into our phone conversation and told him how much he misses him too, and he cried. I guess I forgot I wasn't the only one losing someone, but either way that doesn't change anything. My kids have not even noticed. He did try to send Christmas gifts to them through my mom, but only because I said something about him not acknowledging my son on his birthday. So, is that all he'll ever be? Impersonal generic gifts that my kids get once a year? I told my mom to send them back and that they don't need a gift uncle. Honestly, they have enough of those on my husband's side. With that, I also came to the realization if you don't have a good, respectful relationship with me, you absolutely do not get access to my children. And to be fully honest, he never really took that much interest in my kids anyway. I know he cares and loves them. But as far as a personal one-on-one relationship with them, let's just say the extent of how much he got to know them was always me telling him about them. So there really wasn't a deep, pre-established relationship with any of my kids and him, and with him not being on good terms with me or my husband, I'm not going to allow him access to my children. And I would honestly feel the same way and react to anyone this way. If someone shows you over and over again that they do not love and respect you, why would you allow them access to your kids? Especially if all they are is a gift once a year. I'm not healed, but I am on my way. It's not better, but it's getting better. I feel I am suffering the consequences of someone else's actions. I was spiraling, but I am finding my new normal. I'll update again at the 1-year mark. Story 8. My brother proposed to my fiancée, his ex, and I'm pissed. Original post, September 8, 2023. My 28M brother, Mark, 26M, used to date my fiancée, Jen, 26F, a year ago. For context, they dated back in August 2022. They were only together for a month before he broke things off with her because he was bored of being in a relationship and never really wanted to settle down anyway. At the time they were dating, I was in a different state, so I had no idea he even had a girlfriend, and I had no idea who Jen was until I met her. Jen and I met at a bar when I moved back in October and hit it off really well. She was easily the most beautiful and intelligent woman I ever met, and we met up a few times more before we made it official. Fast forward to December, and I finally bring her up to my family and propose them meeting her at Christmas. They knew I was in a relationship, but I'm not the most open about my personal life, so I kept details about her to a minimum until I knew how serious we really were. My parents asked to see pictures, and they started passing my phone around the dinner table. Mark saw it and blew up calling me a shit brother for dating his ex-girlfriend, and he demanded I break it off with her. I refused. When I asked Jen about it, she confirmed they dated and gave me the details about their breakup. It took a few weeks, but eventually Mark stopped bringing up me dating his ex, and I thought he was over it. On Jen's birthday this year, I took her out to a fancy dinner with both of our families and her closest friends, and I asked her to marry me. Mark flipped once again and blew up about me proposing to her, which I and my sisters immediately shut down. The incident happened this past weekend. Mark had been pretty quiet about the whole thing for the last 2 months. I didn't see him much, and figured he went low contact with me, which I had no problem with. Then he invited me and Jen for family dinner at his apartment with my parents and sisters. I thought it was weird, but my parents and sisters were also going, so we agreed to go. The dinner was nice, nothing too fancy, and we moved to the living room to talk. About 30 minutes into normal conversation, Mark stood up and told us he had an announcement. He made a long speech about being happy to have his family around for his big moment, then got on one knee and pulled out this cheap ring while asking Jen to marry him. Jen was confused and obviously uncomfortable and demanded that he put it away and stand up. My dad tried to make a grab for Mark, but I got to him first and punched him. I won't repeat most of it, mostly because I was too angry to even listen most of it. But he said something along the lines of wanting to show me that Jen wasn't really into me and just wanted to get back at him. Before it could get worse, my parents rushed me out and promised to talk to him. It's been a few days since it happened, and I'm still pissed off. I don't know what to do at this point. I'm scared Jen might have second thoughts marrying me because of this. Any advice? Edit. Same post later that day. First, thanks for reading and responding. I've been reading the comments between last night and this morning, and valid points were made. There isn't an update since the only people I've spoken to since that dinner is Jen and my little sister. I want to clarify a few things that I saw in the comments. Jen and I are newly engaged. It was one of those feelings where we both knew we were in it for the long run. As fast as it is, I'm sure about her. When we met, I was the one who approached her, not the other way around. Whether she knew or had suspicions of us being related, I don't know. I asked after finding out they dated, and she says she had no idea. I didn't have a reason to doubt that, but I can admit this seemingly overreaction on Mark's part does raise red flags. I had no idea she and Mark dated when I met her. Mark and I aren't close at all. We used to be, but as we grew up, we drifted and talked less and less. Before I moved back, we didn't really speak much aside from special days like his or my birthday. Jen knew of my family, but not much until I decided I was ready to introduce them to her. When she and Mark met, again, I didn't get a sense of any residual feelings on either part. She didn't treat him like a stranger, but she also wasn't overly affectionate with him either. I was told this was a relationship that lasted a month. I didn't think I needed permission from Mark to ask her to marry me. But maybe that was wrong of me. I'm not sure. That being said, I plan to talk to Mark this weekend to lay everything out on the table and figure out what's up. I never asked for his side of their relationship, which is my fault for not doing my due diligence. If anything major or enlightening happens, I'll update. But for now, that's all I have. Relevant comments. Don't give in to the "but he's family" comments. Thankfully, I haven't heard the "he's family" shit much aside from my mom and a few aunts. They know me well enough to know our relationship isn't enough for me to put up with his disrespect, especially towards my fiancée. They'd be wasting their breath. En fiancé. Yeah, I don't think I have to worry about her going back. Safe to say she can't stand him either, LOL. Update post, September 10th, 2023, 2 days later. First, I want to thank everyone for reading. It's been a busy weekend, so I haven't had the chance to reply to many people, but I did edit in responses to the most common questions I saw in the comments of the original post. Again, thank you. I appreciate it all, even the criticisms. Now for the update. I called Mark and asked him to meet up with me at my place to talk. I told him I would prefer Jen to be around for the talk as well, but I was cool with it if he didn't want her there. He agreed to talk to both of us and showed up at my place around noon today. It was pretty quiet for a few minutes before I started the conversation. I apologized for not warning him I would be proposing to Jen, and I apologized for hitting him. He said it was whatever, but he appreciated the apology. I told him what Jen had said about the relationship and breakup when I asked her about it, and I asked him to confirm if it was true. I pretty much said that his reaction throughout the whole thing has been extreme, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding their relationship or downplaying how serious they were. He confirmed that they only dated for a few weeks, and he broke up with her because he lost interest. Jen asked if he was acting like this because he still had feelings or regrets about ending things with her. He said he could admit he thought she was more attractive than when he last saw her, but there weren't any feelings or regrets. He said he just didn't like seeing a girl he dated, even if it was short-term, with his older brother, and as a man I shouldn't have violated him by pursuing things with his ex. I reminded him that I had no idea they dated, so it wasn't like I consciously did this knowing their history together. He shrugged me off and said it didn't matter. I still should have broken it off. He was adamant that if the roles were reversed, he would have done the same thing, which I doubt. I asked him why he proposed to her if he didn't have any lingering feelings. Basically, to sum it up, he was talking about it to one of his buddies who was around when Mark and Jen dated, and the guy put the idea in his head that maybe Jen knew from the start that we were related and was doing this to get back at him, considering Jen had been hung up on him after they ended. He and his friend thought it would be a good idea to test it and see if they were right, so he came up with the idea to propose and see if she dumped me for him. Jen asked him to elaborate on why he thought she was hung up on him, and he told her that he heard she was asking about him following the breakup and still hanging out at the places they used to go to, so it was a valid assumption. Then for her to pop up randomly with his brother affirmed his suspicions. Jen told him she'd only asked about him once following the breakup, and she'd been hanging out at those places with friends before they started dating, and she wouldn't avoid them because of a breakup. She also told him she was offended at the idea that she would go as low as to pursue me, just to get back at him. He shrugged and gave her a half-assed apology, but said she had to see it from his point of view. He asked her if she really didn't know, and she told him that she didn't see the resemblance in us until we were in the same room and we act nothing alike, so it never crossed her mind, and he said okay. That pretty much wrapped up the conversation. He did tell me before he left that I could take back his invite to the wedding because he can't bring himself to support our relationship, knowing he used to date her. I told him he didn't have to worry about that, as he was most likely going to be uninvited anyway. It's been a few hours since our talk, and I do feel better. My parents aren't too happy about him being uninvited, but they understood that it was a mutual decision and probably for the best. My sisters told me they knew he didn't have a good reason for being an asshole, and they don't blame me for not wanting him at the wedding. As of now, I'm going to limit contact with Mark, and I doubt he'll reach out to me anytime soon either. Once again, I want to thank everyone for reading and commenting, and if anything significant happens, I'll update again. Relevant comment: why didn't she know of your family? We hadn't discussed my family much in the beginning of our relationship. I left home to get away from them, my parents specifically, and started reconciling at my sister's request when I decided to move back home. I was open about not being close with them when Jen asked, and she was okay with being left in the dark considering the circumstances. Update post 2 and 3, November 11, 2023, 2 months later. Editor's note: OOP posted both of these updates on the same post, but to clarify, Update 3E would have happened about 2 weeks after Update 2A. He just combined both updates into one post. If I had to guess, it probably was because one of his updates got removed or stuck in limbo on a subreddit. I couldn't post this to the same forum, so I'm posting this directly to my profile in case anyone is interested in an update. It's been a while since I've posted, but a few things have happened since my last talk with Mark. So I've been low contact with Mark since our last conversation. I haven't called him and he hasn't called me, and our only interactions have been in family settings. As it stands, my mom is now upset that Mark is still uninvited from my wedding. It started with a comment made during my younger sister, Sophie, 22F's birthday. Her boyfriend of, I think, 4 years proposed to her at the end of the night, and we sat around talking about what she envisioned for her dream wedding. She talked a bit about wanting a destination wedding and her ideas for the cake and dress. Then she said something along the lines of, "Teddy, I know Mark's banned from your wedding, but you won't care if he comes to mine, right?" I laughed it off and told her I can't get mad about her guest list even if I wanted to. My mom gave me this weird look and asked if Mark was still not invited to my wedding. I told her yes, and she got irritated. She told me she thought I was joking and said I was being unreasonable to go through with banning him from the wedding since he's family. She accused me of holding a grudge just to be petty. I reminded her that he and I agreed on him not coming. I then told her that this wasn't the time to talk about my wedding since the day was about Sophie, and if Mark or her want to talk about my wedding, they can call me another time. Sophie laid into my mom a bit about trying to make her special day about Mark, and my mom dropped the issue. For those of you who might be wondering, Mark wasn't at Sophie's party because he apparently had to work and couldn't make it. A few days later, my mom stopped by my house and said she wanted to discuss my wedding. She asked me why I was so adamant about Mark not coming to my wedding. She said that I shouldn't be so insecure about Mark and Jen's previous relationship and that uninviting him was a step too far. I told her that Mark and I mutually agreed on him not coming to the wedding, and he can come to me about it himself if he has a problem with it. We got into an argument, and she said that if I wasn't going to re-invite Mark, then she would not be coming either, because I'm ostracizing her son. I shrugged and told her, if that's what she wants, then she can toss her invite in the trash, because I won't beg her to be there. She asked me if I would really be okay with her not attending, and I told her it wouldn't be the first time she missed an event of mine because of Mark. She said I was being an AH for throwing her past mistakes in her face, and she stormed out. I then started getting messages and phone calls from her and a few family members about the whole situation, saying I was in the wrong and urging me to invite Mark just to keep the peace. Jen's also been getting messages from my mom asking her to talk to me and get me to change my mind, but to my knowledge, she hasn't been responding. So far, most of my mom's side of the family are standing in solidarity with her and not attending, while my dad and his side of the family, which is only my aunt and uncle and their 2 kids, agree with me and are still coming. My sisters are also still coming to the wedding, and of course Jen's family too. Also, I talked to Mark about it and asked him if he had a problem with not having an invite. He said he uninvited himself in the first place, and he doesn't get why they're making a big deal because he still doesn't want to go. He told me to leave him out of the fighting because he's not involved, and he says he'd tell her the same. As of now, I'm back to being low contact with my mom, but my dad and I are still on decent terms. I'm still deciding on whether I'll re-invite my mom and her family, should they change their mind about the boycott. But the chances are low, and I told my dad this too, which he understands. For now, Jen and I started looking into downsizing the venue since the guest list is significantly smaller. Update 3. My mom is uninvited from the wedding indefinitely. About 2 weeks after she decided to not come to the wedding, she stopped by and said she wanted to clear the air and talk about everything. We agreed and invited her in to join us for dinner. Jen made her a plate of food, and I asked her if she was still planning on not coming to the wedding. She said that while she wants to, she can't get over me not inviting Mark because of a simple mistake. I reminded her that his simple mistake was proposing to my fiancé with me sitting less than 3 feet away from him, and she said it was just a joke. Jen asked her why she wanted to talk if she was maintaining the same stance on Mark coming to the wedding. She said she wanted to talk to Jen, and she was hoping Jen would hear her out and talk me into inviting Mark again. She apparently assumed I was at work and she'd be able to catch her alone. Jen politely told her that she understood her thought process, but she wouldn't have had that conversation anyway without me present, since this is about my brother. My mom made a comment somewhere in the lines of Jen being spineless and unable to have a conversation without me thinking for her, which started a pretty heated back and forth between the three of us before Jen told her to get out. She got up and started walking towards the door, and my mom followed her, still screaming at her. By this point, she's yelling about her tearing our family apart. While Jen was unlocking the front door, my mom grabbed her hair and pulled her to the ground, still screaming. She hit her and tried to claw her face, and I dragged her off of her and threw her outside. She banged on the door for a few minutes, while I made sure Jen was okay before she left and called the both of us repeatedly. When I was sure Jen was okay, I texted my mom and told her not to bother reaching out again, because we'll never speak to her again. I called my dad and sisters and told them what happened too. My dad was surprised and tried to make excuses, saying she'd been stressed about this whole situation for a while. My sisters say they knew she'd snap eventually since she's always been a crazy bi, and they said they'd come make sure Jen is okay. I asked Jen if she wanted to press charges, but she declined and said she only wanted to cut contact with her for good. I told that part was obvious, but she should still talk to the police since she was physically assaulted, but she doesn't want my mom to get arrested. My sisters and Jen's mom came by to comfort her, thankfully, so she's doing okay. My mom is blocked on everything until Jen says otherwise. I genuinely don't know what to do now. Jen doesn't want to go to the police because she'd feel guilty having her arrested over this, but my sisters and I want to convince her to, and I'd at least want documentation in case something happens in the future. Relevant comment. All if this could have been avoided if Mark had sat down with your mom and taken responsibility. He absolutely could, but I don't think he knows what accountability means. I really do believe he thinks he has nothing to do with our mom's actions, and I don't think anything I say will be enough to convince him that everything she does is for him and her own selfish gain. OOP comments on November 12th to someone saying they should really press charges. Jen is still against formal charges, but after reading some of your comments with me and a long talk about how this could escalate, she agreed to have it documented with the police just in case. She wants to talk to my dad about possibly getting her back in therapy or some kind of treatment for her erratic behavior. And of course, we are moving forward with going no contact. Clarification post. November 13th, 2023. Title: Some background on my relationship with my parents. Some people were asking questions about my mom and my decision not to be open with Jen about my relationship with my parents. I figure I could give some background on why we're so strained. Like some of you said, Mark was the golden child. Mark was my mom's baby boy, and she didn't do much to try and hide it. They didn't spend much time with my sisters, and I, like normal parents did with their kids unless they had to. But they'd spend time with Mark as often as possible, like taking him out shopping while we stayed with a sitter, or bringing him home his favorite food and toys from the store when they'd shop alone. He usually got better things compared to the rest of us, like new expensive clothes, while ours were thrifted, or new toys just for him compared to old toys we had to share with each other. If my sisters and I got gifts, they were for us to share, but my mom made it pretty clear that Mark's things were only for him and we shouldn't touch it. When Mark would screw up, I'd get punished for not being a good role model and showing him the proper way to behave. For example, Mark went through a phase of breaking his toys, and I got the beating because obviously he learned that behavior from me. When he was 8, Mark got in trouble at school for trying to push a kid down the stairs. I was grounded for 2 weeks and told to apologize to the kid for not teaching my brother right. When I turned 13, I pushed for my parents to start giving me an allowance. They agreed as long as I did household chores like mowing the lawn, taking out the trash, raking leaves, etc. It was usually somewhere around $25 a week to help me start saving. Mark saw that I was getting money, and he begged my parents for an allowance too. Instead of making him work, $10 of my allowance money was given to him each week because we were doing such a good job with our chores that he never touched. Whenever I asked him to help, he'd tell me it's not his job to do chores, so why should he bother? It was around this time that I started really distancing myself from my brother. By the time I entered high school, we only talked to each other when we needed small favors or when we absolutely had to. I got my first job when I turned 17 because I wanted to finally get my own car and make money that they couldn't force me to give to Mark. My oldest sister, Maggie, helped me start my own bank account and showed me how to properly budget and save my money. I got my first car at 18 after all of my hard work. When Mark got his license, my parents asked me to let him use my car to get around and for extra practice behind the wheel. Reluctantly, I agreed, and for a while the arrangement was fine. Mark used my car when I didn't need it and helped maintain it pretty well. When he expressed wanting my parents to buy him his own car, my mom came to me and told me to give him my car because he needed it more. When I refused, she threatened to kick me out. We got in a fight that night, which ended with her giving Mark my car and taking me to transfer ownership of it to him within the following few days. Since I didn't have anywhere else I could go at the time, I just sucked it up and signed it over. When I graduated high school, both of my parents skipped my graduation because Mark didn't want to sit in a long ceremony just to see me get a piece of paper, and my mom didn't want to leave him alone for the night. So I only had the support of my sisters and my aunt and uncle, who wanted to take me out. They ended up having to bring me home at my parents' request because they made me dinner to make it up to me. It was a dinner I couldn't eat because my mom put shrimp and chicken on the same serving dish, and I'm allergic to shellfish. IME first year out of high school, I worked 2 jobs to buy myself another car, and at the start of the new school year, I moved away for college and cut contact with them. They, mostly my mom, tried to reach out for the first few months via social media and Sophie, but I never responded, and I told Sophie she would be cut off too if she kept trying. When she couldn't get to me through Sophie, she tried going through my older sister Charlotte, and a few times through Maggie and Mark until I threatened to file a restraining order for harassment. It was a bluff because I had no idea how to do it, but it managed to scare her off, and the most I got from her was happy holiday texts over the years. Around the time I moved back, Charlotte told me they had been seeing a family therapist, at Charlotte's request, and my parents wanted to apologize for their treatment of us. I was hesitant, but I agreed as long as they would be genuine, and the reconciliation process started when I moved back home. That doesn't even scratch the surface of everything they put me through, and it took a lot for me to even begin to let them back into my life. When I met Jen, I wasn't sure where my relationship with her was going, or where my relationship with my parents was going. I didn't want to mention my family at all, mostly because I was ready to cut contact again if I needed to. Jen was understanding of it being a sore subject and didn't press for more. I hope this helps shed some light on some of the questions I'd been seeing pop up. Relevant comment on why OOP didn't have reconciliation depend on them reimbursing him for the car. Getting reimbursement for the car wasn't a hill I was willing to die on since the damage was already done. Even now it's hard to believe Mark was the favorite. There wasn't anything really special about him. I don't mean that as an insult either. He was just a regular kid. My parents weren't having fertility issues. He wasn't a miracle, wasn't a meal ticket. They weren't having marital problems and using a baby as a Band-Aid. He was just born and they decided to love him more than us. And believe me, they didn't think this was normal. They just have a soft spot for our parents because they're our parents, and they believe they have redeeming qualities. You sure you're not adopted? I'm biological. Unfortunately, they couldn't deny me even if they wanted to, ha. I used to make excuses for them, but after a while I had to admit that they're just two people who should never have had kids. Update Post 4, November 30th, 2023, 17 days later. I want to thank everyone who's taken the time to give me advice on what to do going forward and all the kind messages and comments I've gotten over the past few days, weeks. Jen and I have read the comments together, and everything is appreciated. To answer the most common question about why I chose to reconnect after everything, the short answer is because I would do anything for my sisters. Charlotte wanted the entire family around, and for the birth of her first child, and to help her while she adjusts. She didn't want part-time aunts and uncles who would only visit her kid during birthdays and holidays. She was never the type to ask for much of anything growing up, so when she asked if I would be willing to try for her, I agreed, because it would make her happy. I also think part of me hoped that maybe they'd changed. I don't regret trying to reconcile either. My parents are still terrible, but I met the love of my life, so I call it a win. A few people wanted to know if there's an update, so here we go. Sorry if it's a mess or confusing, a lot has happened. We filed a report with the police and were told that even though Jen doesn't want to pursue anything, it's not up to us to decide whether it goes further, but they would keep our preference in mind. We provided some pretty decent evidence of the assault, including pictures of Jen's face and texts with my mom and dad talking about what happened. We were advised to report and record any other incidents with my mom going further, in case anything else happens. Considering where we live, I doubt it'll go anywhere, but at least we have it on record. I got about 100 angry text messages that tell me they at least spoke with her regarding the incident. My mom tried to corner me, leaving my job, and screamed at me about trying to ruin her life. She kept screaming that I was an awful son for trying to get her arrested over a small misunderstanding, and she didn't understand what she'd done to deserve being punished like this. I told her that if she didn't like being in legal trouble, then she shouldn't have hit Jen. She demanded I tell the police to forget the report, which I refused. I told her exactly what the officer said about it being out of my hands. She had a tantrum in the parking lot and hit me a few times, just on the chest and arm, before security intervened and dragged her off the property. I had to talk to my boss about the incident. Luckily, she was understanding of everything going on after I explained what was happening. When I got home, I told Jen what happened. She was upset and asked that we discuss the plan with my family moving forward. It was a long talk, but we took the advice of some Redditors and decided to go completely no contact with my family aside from my sisters. We agreed that having them in my life is adding unnecessary stress for the both of us, and we aren't even married yet. She told me she wanted to consider moving away and putting some distance between us and my family. She said that she tried to stay out of my family issues because it's not her place, but she refuses to put up with my mom and her behavior or my dad enabling her abuse. A lot more was said, too much to put in this post, but I agreed with her that they were more trouble than they're worth, and I also don't want to put up with this anymore. I also agreed to go to therapy, and she's helping me find a therapist. I decided to call my dad after our talk and let him know I would be going no contact. He didn't answer the first time I called, so I left a message asking to have a long talk. When he called back, he asked if it was okay for my mom to be a part of the conversation. I told him it was okay since she needed to hear what I had to say too. The conversation went about as well as you could expect. I told them both that Jen and I are cutting them out of our lives. My dad demanded to know why I would do something like that after going through all the trouble of repairing our relationship. I told him that this entire thing with Mark has shown me that nothing is actually repaired between us, and as far as they're concerned, the world revolves only around my mom and my little brother. I told them that their continued favoritism of Mark has brought our relationship to a point of no return, and that I wasn't interested in holding on to a failing relationship. I told them that I agreed to reconcile for Charlotte's sake, but I don't appreciate all of the disrespect towards me and Jen, and that I wouldn't put up with it anymore for both of our sakes. To my mom specifically, I told her that I was tired of her using me as a scapegoat for her bad parenting and Mark's attitude. I also told her that I would never forgive her for what she did to Jen and what she did to me and my sisters growing up. She started to say how I should move on like my sisters have, but I cut her off and told her that she should take their forgiveness and move on because she would never receive it from me, especially after everything she's done these last few weeks. She started crying and asking me how I could treat her like such a villain. I told her she could only be upset with herself because I've done nothing wrong. She cried harder and told me how much she regretted having me and how I've only tried to ruin her life. This started a heated argument between her and Jen once again, and Jen told her in much more colorful words that she was disgusting, and plenty of other nice names, for saying something like that to me. I don't know if she left the room or just decided to shut up, but my mom stopped talking when Jen was done speaking to her. My dad said he wasn't okay with being shut out of my life, and he asked me to try to understand my mom's point of view. He said that she was also struggling because her kids were at odds, and I was being unfair to punish her for her struggles with raising and caring for us. The last thing he said was that we were a family, and I shouldn't let past mistakes stop us from moving forward together. I told him that the only person she ever cared for was Mark and herself, and there was nothing he could say or do to make me change my mind. I told him that it was up to him whether to keep my number, but I would be blocking him and my mom everywhere and I wouldn't be reaching out again. Then I hung up. Afterward, I sent a long email with the link to my posts attached to my entire family, uninviting everyone except my aunt and uncle and my sisters to the wedding. I hadn't cried in a long time, but Jen held me while I cried after writing the email, and she assured me we would be okay. My sisters also reached out to me after reading the email. I apologized to Charlotte for not being able to continue reconciling like she wanted, but she told me it was okay, and it's not my fault I had to cut them off again. The response from my family has been pretty mixed. Some are angry I aired out family issues on a public internet forum, while others are pissed at my parents because they never knew it was this bad. The last person I talked to about everything was Mark. He asked if I was cutting him off too, and I told him I wasn't, but I wouldn't be going out of my way to reach out to him either. He didn't argue and just wished me the best with the wedding, and we haven't spoken since. Right now, Jen and I are looking for a new place to stay. The plan is to move closer to Jen's brother. He lives about 3 hours from where we are now, and Jen and I like the city he's in. I spoke to my boss about transferring, and Jen is looking into the option of working 100% remotely, or possibly finding a new job. And once again, our venue's changed. Since the guest list is significantly smaller, my FBIL is considering letting us use his lake house for our wedding. I don't plan to post any more about this unless the sky falls, at least not until the wedding, because I want to move on with life. But I'll try to answer any questions some of you might have. Thanks and happy holidays. Edit. It took a few days to post this and I had to keep removing details before I could actually post it. If anything's unclear, I'll answer as many questions as I can. Relevant comment. Your mom might try to figure out where you moved to. Aha. I'm already anticipating the aftermath of moving. She's going to follow us when we move because that's the kind of crazy she is. When she doesn't get her way, she becomes obsessive until she's forced to stop. I spoke with a lawyer friend of mine to see about a possible restraining order to stop her before she starts. Did Mom read the comments? According to Sophie, she's read a lot of them and doesn't think Reddit strangers have the right to tell her she's a bad person, lol. I don't think there's any amending left in me. Wish them the best. Just as far from me and my family as possible. Newest update post, September 29th, 2024, 10 months later. Hey everyone, it's been a minute since I posted here. Things have been busy, but I saw a few requests for an update. It's small, but here it is. I have a wife and a newborn daughter now. We found out Jen was pregnant around the time of my last post, so that pretty much kicked us into overdrive as far as moving away and starting fresh in a new place. I was able to transfer to a different location, and Jen found a new job here that lets her work remotely. We got married 4 months ago at her brother's lake house. We didn't plan to have the ceremony so soon, but we both didn't want to wait for the baby to arrive to get married. Jen also found a dress that she fell in love with and didn't want to get too big to wear it. It was a small ceremony with mostly her family present, but my sisters, aunt, and uncle did attend. I know some people probably wanted to hear about a huge blowout at my wedding, but it was easily one of the best days of my life. My daughter was born early last month. She's beautiful, happy, and healthy. Jen's also doing okay. The last stretch of the pregnancy was hard for her both emotionally and physically, but since giving birth, she's been doing better. She's seeing a doctor regularly during this postpartum phase due to complications she had during the pregnancy, but so far there aren't any major health concerns for her. Besides complaining about the doctor visits, I don't think I've seen a frown on her face since we've brought our daughter home. As for my parents, I haven't heard from my dad, but my mom did reach out a few days after the wedding. Apparently my uncle sent them some of the photos they took at the wedding. My mom made a fake Facebook page and started spamming Jen and I with angry messages about excluding her from both the wedding and from Jen's pregnancy. She went on a lengthy tirade about being entitled to being part of her grandchild's life, and about how unfair it was that she wasn't allowed to be present in our lives. She asked to come visit us, demanded we visit her, and even asked to be in the delivery room, all of which was quickly shut down by me. I screenshot everything and emailed it to myself in case I'd need it for a PO in the future, then I blocked her. I haven't heard from her since, but I know she's been harassing my sisters to get us to talk to her. I don't know what, if anything, they're doing about it, but I did make it clear that we have nothing to talk about with her. For everyone wondering if Mark and I have been in contact, the answer is yes. He called after we came back from our honeymoon and congratulated us on the wedding and pregnancy. We did have a long talk about everything that happened. I won't go into detail, but we both got to say a lot, and he did offer both me and Jen what feels like a sincere apology for what he did. We've been texting a bit here and there since we talked. It's mostly just small talk and life updates, but he did invite me to have a drink with him next time I'm in town. I don't know if I'll accept it, but I told him I'd think about it. Thanks everyone for the support and well wishes you've all given us. Sorry if this update was all over the place. Edit. Just to clear it up before anyone asks, Mark doesn't know where I live and likely won't know in the future. If he chooses to give updates about my life to my parents, that's his choice. I won't give him any details that he can pass on that would help them pop up unannounced. Unfortunately, even if we are able to form some sort of relationship, I'll never be able to fully trust him. OOP's comment. Commenter, congratulations to you and Jen on welcoming this new addition to your family. That's amazing news to hear. We knew that the fact your mom got very unhinged after getting both news was a huge possibility, and she made it known to the world. Word of advice, document everything she does, says, sends. You never know if a cease and desist is on the cards for you. Let's hope not. But better to be safe than sorry. Congrats again and soak up all those newly born snuggles. They are the best. OOP. Hey, thanks. Being a new dad has got me anxious, but I think I'm doing a pretty good job. Trust me, I've been embracing all the snuggles, spit, and tears she's been offering. I can't say I'm surprised to hear from her, but I've been keeping everything documented with the advice of my lawyer. I'm hoping we won't need the PO, but anything can happen. Story 9. I have 2 weeks to get away from my husband. Original post April 27, 2024. Throwaway account as my husband and in-laws are follow my main. I, 29F, have been married to my husband, 30EM, who I'll call Alex. Alex and I met in college during our freshman year. We started off as just friends and got married 7 months ago. I've gotten along with his family, but we aren't super close, but we're friendly enough. The problem is that Alex has begun to make me incredibly uncomfortable. Firstly, he's begun to ask me who I'm meeting with, where, what we plan on doing, how long every single time I leave the house without him. At first I just thought he was being protective and a good partner just in case something happened, but then he started checking my phone after the visits, vetting and researching each of my friends as well. He also has been pursuing me to link my bank account to his, as he's in charge of the finances when he was perfectly fine with keeping them separate before. We fight about it almost every day. Finally, Yesterday, when he was preparing to go on a work trip for 2 weeks in California, he demanded I wear a tracker so he could keep an eye on me while he's gone. I can't do this anymore. I feel like I'm suffocating. And his family, who I've spoken to about his worrying behavior, just said he's being careful and protective as a good husband should. I need to gather my things together and find a way to be gone before he gets home without tipping him off. He's always threatened that if he ever found me cheating on him, he'd turn in divorce papers the same day. He keeps a filled-out copy in his desk. I'm going to submit those the day I leave. But there's so much to do. Bergen, finding a new place to live, seeing if my job has any transfers available, packing and moving in 2 weeks. His return flight May 11th, so I need to move quickly. I'm posting here because I don't have any close family, and I can't risk dragging my friends into this as we share the same friends. I just needed a place to vent and ask if anyone has any advice on the easiest and safest way to do this. Edit. Oh my God, you guys are amazing. I never even thought to not use his divorce papers. I'll check for cameras before I start any packing or prepping. I may also shred his divorce papers just in case and look into getting a lawyer for myself. I'm in a no-fault divorce state, that much I so remember, which will help. I'll update again when I know more. The tracker he wants me to use is a small clip to put on the belt or waistband. I'll wear it unless I'm going or doing something related to me leaving. No pets yet, thankfully. Update April 28, 2024. So I've gotten a lot of support and helpful advice along with questions I thought I should clarify before I proceed with the update. Some asked why I'd be hiding things from Alex regarding going out and who I'm meeting with. I don't, and I have nothing to hide. However, when he begins to then double-check everything I tell him with the other people there right down to each person I talk to and what I said. Did I send any text MSGs? Did I order food? How much did I eat? That's when it started to feel like I was slowly being pushed into a corner. It didn't start that bad, but gradually grew worse over time. All of the Reddit subs my in-laws' families are part of are related gardening and DIY, so I highly doubt they'll see this. If so, by the time they do, I'll hopefully be gone. I talked to my job and explained things to my manager, and they promised to look into openings in other states to see if they could get me into one. They'll have an update on that in 3 days. I trust that my bank account is secured, considering he's tried to get into it before and failed. I found one camera in the kitchen, another in the living room, and one in our bedroom. As such, I've left them in place for now and done all other planning, either in the bathroom pretending I'm taking a bath. I'm honestly staying away from the domestic violence services as my sister-in-law is unfortunately higher up in those considering she volunteers there, and I have a feeling if I did show up there, they would know in a heartbeat. I can't look for apartments until I get the update from my work, but either or I'm still going to be leaving the state. The day before I do, I will be changing my number carrier and wiping my laptop and all of his electronics before I do. I've met with 2 lawyers so far and had them look over the paperwork. My husband had prepared and both said that it did have some clauses in it. That could have caused me some trouble down the line. What alarmed all of us closed the fact that several of those clauses dealt with future children and not as a hypothetical. Like several here suggested, I have a feeling he fully intended on getting me pregnant to keep me trapped and tied to him. There are 3 other locations my job could send me to, and I have. As a precaution, begun looking into all 3 cities and housing in the areas. Just in case one of those, this is the one they send me to. Even if they don't have an opening that they can push me into, then I will just have to quit, move, and figure things out on my own. I have enough money to live and survive for a few months until I can pick up another job. Unfortunately, all of our friends are mutuals and would likely be unaware of the consequences of saying or sharing anything I do or say with my husband. I don't have any surviving close family, and obviously my in-laws are not a good resource to rely on. I am on my own, unfortunately, other than the wonderful bonds I've begun to make here. I will update again if I get more information or something else happens. Otherwise, I'll update when my work gets back to me. I do plan on leaving before he returns, though, just to make sure that I'm not anywhere near here at that time. Update 2 April 30th, 2024. Good news. My work has an opening I qualify for that will not only shift me across the country, but also comes with a salary increase as well. I've started telling my in-laws and friends that I'm planning a surprise outing for when my husband gets back for just the 2 of us. This way, people don't give me odd looks if they see me out and about. I've even gone as far as asking MIL to show me his favorite recipes. Meanwhile, I've found a moving company that, while small, is willing to work in a storm. The reason is, in 5 days, we're supposed to get hit with a large storm front. I plan to shut off the breaker and say we lost power if he asks, just as several people here suggested, and even send him a short clip of the storm. I will have all of my stuff moved that afternoon, and I will be flying out once the weather has cleared enough to do so. I have a lawyer who will push my divorce through, and I've filled out the necessary paperwork so that I don't have to be here for it. I'm not suing for assets or alimony, and I've shredded his divorce papers as well. I've set up a cheap payphone plan through Cricket until this is all said and done, at which point I will find a new carrier, number, and phone. This one is being wiped and left behind. My laptop is provided by my work, and the IT department inspected it thoroughly, and it was clean, thankfully. No other electronic aside from my laptop and new phone will be coming with me. If Alex needs to talk to me, he can do it through my lawyer. Not sure if anything else will happen. My fingers are crossed that he doesn't think anything's amiss until after I leave, and I'm not turning the breaker back on when I do. He can when he gets home. My work is covering the plane ticket, so that at least is one expense I don't have to finagle in. Update 3, May 7th, 2024. Update 3. I have 2 weeks to get away from my husband. It's been a busy week, but I've gotten so much done. Firstly, I am now out of the house and am currently in a hotel while I look for an apartment. It's a big city, bustling with people no matter where you look. We had a pretty bad storm system hit back home. That actually lasted 2 days. High winds, thunder, lightning, and even hail everywhere. I didn't take much from the house, my documents, clothes, and important sentimental items. I left all of the furniture and electronics behind. I cleaned the house top to bottom and took pictures on my phone so he couldn't claim I damaged anything when I left. My lawyer has already started divorce proceedings, and my husband will be served on the 8th. His plane is due to land early morning, and the sheriff will be there at the house waiting for him. He is very much about public appearances and reputation. My lawyer will be calling him as well to inform him that I am more than willing to air out everything to the public about his actions if it means securing my freedom from him. I will go to court as long as I must to get this pushed through. I haven't told our friends or his in-laws yet. I will do that while he is on the flight to prevent him from getting wind of it before he's handed the divorce papers. I will be calling around and explaining why we're getting divorced to try and prevent him from twisting this into somehow being my fault. I don't want him trying to claim I had an affair or something, so I want to get the truth out before he can twist this. I'm doing okay. I'm tired, but yet I feel almost jittery and off-kilter. I keep looking over my shoulder and monitoring what I say even when I don't really need to anymore. Hopefully that will fade soon. My work is covering the cost of the hotel, and I'm working on getting my other things in order. I also need to find a new GP as I want to get a full test, just to make sure everything is okay. I don't know when my next update will be, probably when the divorce papers are filed or if we have to go to court to push them through. I will try to keep my head up, but it feels like I'm in a whirlwind or something with so many things to do and think about. I kinda thought it would be easier once I got out of the house, but while the fear is smaller, somehow the number of tasks only seems to have grown. Update 4 May 14th, 2024. Sorry I haven't updated for a while. Things got hectic and a bit chaotic, honestly. Firstly, I'm working on getting an apartment still and have applications in at 3 different places, and will hopefully hear back from them soon. I'm still going into work here at the new location, so I don't have to worry about burning through my emergency savings completely. I've gotten a lot of emails from Alex, his family, and our old friend group asking question after question. I've only sent one return email to Alex, explaining that I don't believe we are truly compatible, and it is best we separate now. That his treatment of me when I'd done nothing to deserve as such was just as much of a deal-breaker as cheating was for him. I ended the email with the statement that I would not be contacting him further, and anything else he needed to pass on to me or vice versa would be done through my lawyer. For his family and friends, I just typed up one email outlining everything that had happened and why I left. I told them I wished them no ill will, but that such treatment of his wife and partner was not acceptable. that should Alex get remarried in the future, I wished they would help support both partners, and not just Alex. Alex, from what my lawyer told me, was livid when he was served. The sheriff actually ended up booking him for assault on an officer and menacing due to the threats he was shouting. His father bailed him out in a few hours, but with the testimony of the sheriff, my lawyer believes I have a very good chance at getting a restraining order. Alex, upon returning to the house, apparently lost his temper again, breaking the dining table into pieces as well as the TV, and putting several holes in the walls. At least that's what one of the emails from one of our friends reported, as Alex called him to help him clean up the mess. My lawyer already has pictures of the house I took, with timestamps as evidence nothing had been damaged by me. My friend reported that Alex tried to claim I'd been the one to trash the house, but the holes in the wall were at head height. Alex is 6'3", and I'm 5'4 inches, so he knew that was false. Either way, taking the pictures definitely will help me, so again, thank you everyone here for the advice, because I never would have thought of that on my own. My work won't share details of where I am, as I do work with some higher-end clientele who value security, and that information won't be gossiped about, and no, I'm not some stripper or escort. I deal with contracts, notary, and business management. As such, even if Alex tried to use my work to find me, he wouldn't succeed. Update on leaving May 26, 2024. It's been a little bit, and I thought I'd answer some questions before giving my update. It may be a while after this until things change. Firstly, no, I didn't bring my car. The public transport here is good enough to use without needing one. I have secured an apartment, and the building has good security. You need a key card to enter, and there is a security guard at a desk right by the entrance to the building. As part of my contract, I gave them a photo of Alex and his family so that even in the off chance they do find me, they won't be let in. The responses I got from the emails varied. His family said I was overreacting, and that I owe Alex an apology for the problems this has caused him. The pending criminal charges puts him at risk of losing his job if he's convicted. Alex sent a long email, apologizing and pleading for me to come home. He said he was worried for me, that he is willing to go to therapy if it will appease me. He wants us to remain together, and he didn't think leaving was an appropriate response to his genuine concern and worry for my health and safety. The friends gave somewhat lacking replies, saying that they didn't think Alex was ever going to hurt me, and that I shouldn't be letting my imagination run away wild. As much as I want to say I was surprised by the lack of support, I'm honestly not. He intends to fight the divorce. I am letting my lawyer handle it, and I am also pursuing a protective order as well. Once I got approved for my apartment, I also froze my credit. I've changed my phone carrier and number, as well as making sure none of my documents list Alex as next of kin or POA. Some have asked why I was so paranoid about Alex and his possible future actions. The answer for that actually is somewhat simple. My grandmother. I loved that woman to bits. As a teen, she explained why my grandfather was never around. He was extremely abusive and manipulative, and her generation didn't allow divorce really. She wouldn't have been able to buy a house or get a good enough job to support her and my mother on her own. As such, she endured it, shielded my mom as she could until my grandfather died. When I felt like I may have been overreacting, I remembered how she'd said she'd always wished she'd been able to see grandfather for what he was early on, when she may have been able to annul the marriage. I don't know when I'll update again, maybe when the divorce goes through or if something big happens. But until then, I'm just trying to keep my head above the water. New update. Another update, June 25th, 2024. It's been a month since my previous update, and I wanted to share some of what's been going on in the meantime. The divorce is proceeding, but even though I don't need him to agree, and he's not, it means I have to go through the courts to get it approved. As such, it could be upwards of 6 months to push it through, even though I'm filing without attempting to claim property, alimony, or compensation. I just want a clean break and separation. Alex has attempted to use our friends to reach out to me, as he doesn't want to use my lawyer for communication. He's saying it's disrespectful and cowardly to hide behind my lawyer and not meet him face to face. Alex wrote me a letter that he did pass off to my lawyer, but the contents were him justifying his actions and claiming that in today's time, It is dangerous for women to be on their own, which is why he was so intent on trying to keep me safe from harm. He wanted me to understand that he was trying to protect me as best he could, and was hurt that I would just lie to him and hide my actions from him related to my dissatisfaction with our marriage and my moving. I didn't reply because at no point did he apologize. All he did was turn everything around on me as I was being overly dramatic, emotional, and cowardly. There was a second letter with Alex's from my SIL. Her letter was honestly disturbing and completely justified my misgivings regarding approaching her in any kind of professional capacity. She spent 5 paragraphs detailing how a real abusive relationship looked like, and that Alex was the furthest thing from abusive. The details she included were all related to financial abuse and physical abuse, nothing like what Alex had been doing. She stated that my attempts to smear her brother's name for attention and clout made me the abuser, not him. I haven't really been able to process that, admittedly. Part of me can't help but wonder if she's right. I mean, I blindsided him by leaving as I did, and am refusing to speak with him at all. My old boss recommended that I look into getting into therapy after I moved, and I think I need to. I have had a hard time adjusting to being on my own. I keep censoring myself and haven't even gone out to eat yet. I always end up worrying about what if someone sees me? What if I get in trouble for spending my money on something frivolous? My lawyer is continuing to fight for the divorce, and I shouldn't need to be physically present in court. Any meetings needed between me and the judge can be done via Zoom. I'm trying to avoid confrontation with Alex and his family for now, as much as I can, and passed both letters to my lawyer in case he needs them. Our friends are mostly trying to avoid taking sides still, and I'm honestly approaching the point of just letting them go as well. I'm tired of fighting for them to understand at this point. I don't know if anything is going to happen, so my next update may not be until around mid-November, depending on how long it takes to push the divorce through. Work is going well, and it's helpful to have something familiar to anchor my day-to-day life when so much has changed and is changing even now.